slated to address, or so they say. They would wish for the government to address a couple of matters, including the high cost of living and the formation of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, as well as addressing what played out or what happened during the 9th general election, that is 9th August general election in the year 2022. And so we'll be following up to see what the events of the day look like, as many would want to ask you, what is your day like? Definitely one thing that we'll be looking at, just so to see how best this is going to pan out, a moment of history in the country of Kenya, and not just in Kenya, but equally across, being awaited by the people of South Africa, the people of Tunisia, and the people of Nigeria. Not forgetting also that moment where then the likes of Putin as well are having a session with, these are the bigger powers that we speak out or speak of, that is in the global fraternity. And we follow up to see just how this will turn out. Welcome on board. I'll be having my reporters down on ground to tell us what they feel about this much publicized day by the Azimio team. That is the Maandamano Day, where they say they're going to march to either State House or Harambee House to speak to President William Ruto and to address, or to present to them this proposal that they have, so that the government can look into that. The police in Nairobi have declared this protest illegal, as they say all the people that presented their request for this did not meet the threshold, this including the Azimio and Kenya Alliance and equally the business community, who had said they would be keen to protect their businesses from any form of, animosity or essence of unrest that would disrupt their activities or their businesses. But then again, they were not given that go ahead. Is this showdown, or is this process by Azimio and Kenya Alliance illegal? That is what we seek to establish with the gentlemen that will be joining us this morning for this very conversation. Their view and equally your view is welcome. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KE. We'll be sampling some of your comments as we continue with the broadcast. The president says that in as much as he's willing to sit down and have a conversation, it should not be pegged on the question of a handshake. And even still, he says it should be for the bishops to pray, but for them to make sure that they guarantee Kenyans that aspect of, peace and stability as well as tranquility. Also calling upon the Right Honorable Raila Odinga as the face of the protest, or the protesters, to make sure that theirs is going to be a peaceful process, as the police will also be there to protect them and protect any other Kenyan. So we'll be following up on this to see how it pans out. Join me at this very hour, and we go all the way to 9:30 and beyond, following the events of the day right here in Nairobi and across the different parts of the country. We first of all look at the papers this morning, basically speaking to this matter and so many other stories that are captured, as well as the stories that we'll be looking at, that is stories that are prepared by my team. We have the Standard newspaper, the Daily Nation, and the People Daily that we'll be looking at. The Daily Nation speaks of Ruto backing talks as Raila protest starts, as calls for dialogue between President William Ruto and Azimio leader intensify. The head of state yesterday said that he was willing to hold conditional talks, even as the opposition chief rallied troops for demonstrations today. And the Right Honorable Raila Odinga said that the only way there's going to be a conversation or dialogue, so to speak, should be after the very same protests this are slated for today. And Kenyans have been waiting to see whether this then will address the high cost of living and the grievances that a majority of them would have as pertaining to the reign of the Kenya Kwanza government. And so we'll be looking at this story as we continue with the broadcast. It's the biggest story of the day, and so we'll spend most of our time on that. Remember, as I have mentioned, that it's going to be a D-Day of demonstrations as planned in South Africa, Tunisia, as well as Nigeria. And we'll be here to keep you up to tabs as to how this one's as well pan out. Away from that very story, public universities where tribe will get you a job. Interesting that when There's a story that has been captured on page 10 of the Daily Nation. They say when Dan learned he was to join Moi University, that is in 2016, he was excited about the 4-year journey of higher learning and exposure that awaited him in one of Kenya's oldest and largest universities. His joy, however, faded as soon as he joined the institution when he met or encountered an unwritten hurdle: stinking ethnicity in the university staff complement. It's quite unfortunate that this is what is the case. But as they would always say, for as long as they're able Kenyans, then they should be accorded that chance to serve. And away from it, IEBC owes a firm hoping a 4 billion in legal fees, as members of parliament are told. And this is a story that has been captured on the back page that, PAC is considering IEBC's audited accounts for 2020 and 2021 financial year, and the amount owed to lawyers constitutes about 85% of the entire 4.4 billion pending bills. This amount, they say, that is owed to lawyers these are monies that, of course, they're supposed to be paid, having represented IEBC on various legal tussles. Away from it, cut off by Cyclone Freddy, Malawians face starvation. This is quite unfortunate that Freddy hit the country earlier this week, and this triggered flooding and mudslides that swept away homes, roads and bridges. A story captured on page 24. We all know that some of these, disasters would land most of the countries, and across into trouble and disaster, or so to speak, as the country continues to seek to see how best they can address the same. And you're always reminded to be on alert as a country, as a nation, as the global fraternity of the climatic changes and conditions. Mystery as pastor meets her death in gospel musician's house. A story captured on page 4. It's quite unfortunate, and of course investigations ongoing as to what could have triggered this, whether a crime of passion or what. Suddenly we'll be having updates on the same. The public to access KDF hospitals and defense. PS says that move will come in handy to help these facilities to self-sustain. Remember, there's been this complaints that the facilities are not in the best of shape, as they called upon government to make sure that the status of these facilities are upgraded. And because then this comes with a bit of difficulties with the budget, then they say it would be wise to have the public as well access the medical services from these entities. That way then it becomes easy to get more funds to sustain the entities. How varsities withered income storm. A story captured on page 14. Also an interesting piece. But then is it that they're already off the hook? Equally a conversation that is on. And of course demos are on in the global fraternity as well. Trump fears arrest and calls on demos. We'll also be following up to see how this pans out. And on the other side, a day of showdown that President William Ruto says he will not buckle under pressure from opposition leader or protests, while the church called for dialogue on day. Of course, Raila insisted the march is unstoppable. That's a story captured on page 3, 4, 6, and 7 of the Standard newspaper. The biggest story of the day, the story that we'll be delving on as we get the view of the gentleman that we have on set on this very day, and also seek to see how the day will turn out. And on Ruto's side, he says Raila is the cause of the problems the country is facing. He continues to say that Raila does not want to follow the law in the selection of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Equally, opposition wants to cause anarchy. Raila wants to put country on a chokehold, and government will stop him. But on the other side, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga says Ruto must open the IEBC servers. Cherera form must be reinstated, and cost of living has to come down. Government ought to reinstate subsidies, as well as through review of laws and not piecemeal reforms or piecemeal reforms. Yes, this is a story that has been captured on the front page, and as I have said, is expounded on these other pages. We'll be looking at court ruling gives drugs war shot in the arm. That a life sentence for 7 dealers in 1.3 heroin case will go a long way in keeping at bay drug deadline at the coast. And that also is one of the stories that we have. Let's look at what the People Daily has to say on this very morning. Heat of a Raila protest plan. That also will be following up to see what plays out in relation to that, the key faces as to this, and their view on whether we should see some of this, continue, or indeed there has to be some essence of conversation between these two leaders to quell the protest. But is it really, or is this at the mercy of the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, or it is beyond him now that he triggered the same and a majority of his supporters swung into this momentum, then it becomes hard for them to take an about turn. Schools reopen amid cash crisis, and also we have them students going back after the mid-term, and we follow up to see what will play out. We also understand that this anticipated protests have in a way disrupted the activities at the level of schools, and equally disrupting activities, in working environments. Some individuals saying that they're not going to work or they're not going to the office as they have fears of what is likely to play out as to the same. We're following up to update you on the same. This as well are the key stories as captured on the People Daily. Allow us to look at some that are prepared by my team. And the National Police Service has raised concerns about the legality of the planned demonstrations by the Azimio and Kenya and the Nairobi business community. According to the Nairobi Police Commander Adamson Bungei, the two groups failed to comply with the Public Order Act of 2012, which requires that requests hold the demonstrations be submitted at least 3 days in advance. Meanwhile, demonstrators in Kisumu County held protests ahead of the main protest scheduled for today.
Sunday morning, a few kilometers away from the Kisumu bus park, what was to be a peaceful demonstration ahead of Monday's Azimio rally turned ugly after two groups clashed.
Peaceful demonstration, they did not notify the police. Hawa watu wameingia na kuingia kwa street. So tunaomba next time it is good to notify the OCS. So from there we can arrange for security. Yes.
It is reported that the police who tried to calm the situation down were pelted with stones. This as several people were injured in the fracas that lasted a few minutes. And with a few hours remaining to the much publicized 20th March demonstrations set to begin in the middle of the country's capital and sneak to State House. Azimio leader Raila Odinga is now a man on the spot over security concerns during the march. Despite allaying fears that businesses will be disrupted, further urging his stalwarts to carry white handkerchiefs, a clear representation of their intent for peace, Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki has warned that Azimio leaders will be responsible for any destruction of property. Professor Kindiki directed that all week activities, including learning, will proceed uninterrupted.
Thank you very much.
This even as Nairobi Police Commander Adamson Bungei has termed the Azimio march as illegal.
Public Order Act 2012, Section 5, Subsection 2, provides that any person intending to convene any meeting or a public procession shall notify the regulating officer of such intent at least 3 days, but not more than 14 days, before the proposed date of the public meeting or procession.
According to Bungei, Nairobi business community, together with the Azimio Brigade, furnished them with a request to hold demonstrations as late as Sunday morning, contrary to the law.
As National Police Service, we shall perform our mandate as guided, and I will repeat this, by the law. And we have to accommodate and tolerate each other as citizens of this country. I'm saying this because people may have fear just because of the social media means of communication. We want to assure Kenyans that we are in charge of the security of the city and nothing is left unattended.
Bungei has further warned those who will take to the streets tomorrow that State House, together with other protected areas, are out of bounds.
Restricted areas. What are those restricted areas? Those are areas that are not, or no person who is not authorized is allowed to get entry to. So I want Kenyans to be guided. to be informed by the law, not by persons of personal interest, so that we remain as a country, because this is our country. We should be guided and understand the law.
Now, the D-Day to the Azimio planned mass action is today, the 20th of March, a day when the opposition is expected to hold countrywide demonstrations to protest the high cost of living. The Azimio leaders have vowed to hold peaceful demonstrations amid claims that they want to cause chaos.
Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party leader Raila Odinga has dismissed a police declaration that the planned mass demonstration is illegal, saying that the Inspector General was made aware. The opposition leader says the planned protest will take place as early announced, despite a police declaration that the plan is illegal.
Usikie mambo ya polisi. Polisi anasema walikuwa hawajapata habari. Polisi wamepewa habari. Bwana Poranya aliandikia barua Inspector General ya Police akamwambia kwamba siku ya Jumatatu tarehe 20 Kenya zote watu watafanya maandamano.
Earlier today, Nairobi Regional Commander Adamson Bungei stated that the coalition failed to meet the requirements of the Public Order Act, which requires that persons planning to picket inform the police at least 3 days prior. However, Azimio leaders have downplayed claims that the protest will cause fracas, assuring Kenyans that they will hold peaceful demonstrations.
Hata wahalifu wakijaribu, walio wengi wakiamua, kesho ni siku ya amani. Lakini kuandamana lazima tuandamane.
Nasema we shall demonstrate, we shall picket and arm kwa njia ya amani tupu. Mother is going to tell you what she has herself proposed kesho. Because tunataka tu maandamano ya amani. We stress peaceful demonstration.
Hata mama mboga kuweka chakula kwa meza ni gumu. Kwa hivyo kesho tutokeni sote wengi. Tunataka watu wengi. Tuone yule atasimamisha watu 200,000 ni nani atawasimamisha.
Odinga stated that Kenyans will converge in the middle of the Central Business District in Nairobi and later march towards State House during tomorrow's demonstrations. The former premier also faulted the head of state William Ruto for using the country's electoral system to allegedly try and break the 2027 general election.
And we will be assembling wherever you are. If you cannot come to Nairobi, demonstrate where you are, peacefully. But those who can come to Nairobi, come to Nairobi. Tuingie ndani ya Nairobi. Tuonyesha hao waoga ya kwamba Kenya ni kubwa kushinda hao.
Flora Limuki, TV47.
And President William Ruto has responded to the Azimio la Umoja Coalition's plan to hold a demonstration against his government in the country's capital. Ruto stated that he is willing to hold talks with any leader on development-based issues, but will not entertain attempts to hold the country at what he called a ransom for political gain. Mwege William tells us more.
Mimi nataka niwaulize maaskofu, haya mambo ya maandamano, nyinyi mtaomba Mungu, sisi tutapambana na hawa.
Hours to the much hyped anti-Kenya Kwanza demonstration at the capital, President William Ruto seems to have had enough of Azimio leader Raila Odinga, stating that he is ready to have talks with any leader but was quick to dismiss Odinga, adding that he will only engage in talks about development. The demos, according to Raila, are to push the government to lower the cost of living and also call for electoral justice. But President Ruto, in disagreement, states that Odinga and his group had no genuine reasons to rally their supporters for demonstrations.
He has absolutely no reason. I have tried to listen to him, what he is saying. He is telling us he doesn't believe in IBC. He doesn't believe in the Supreme Court. He believes in a whistleblower. And that's the reason he wants to terrorize the country with violence and chaos.
President Ruto, sending a caution to the opposition, highlighted that his administration will not entertain anyone causing disturbance. The statement by the president, coming after Nairobi police boss Adamson Bungei, said that the Azimio demos slated for Monday were not in adherence to the Public Order Act.
You now want to extend to terrorize the people of Kenya using chaos, using violence, using demonstrations, using anarchy. When you have absolutely no reason, it will not happen We will not allow you.
Leaders accompanying the president to attend a Thanksgiving service in Nandi County urged the president not to be intimidated by the Azimio faction.
Kenyatta na kuomba, within the few remaining hours, look for your brother, tell him to stop that nonsense of getting people to Nairobi to come and destroy property because it's immoral, it's unacceptable, it's ungodly, and it cannot be accepted in a normal society.
Let the leaders of this country, and particularly those in opposition, differentiate between agitation and provocation, because Kenya has got a lot of items to deal with, and the leaders have spoken to those items.
The leaders also called on the president to exercise his authority without fear by cracking the whip on those who will stage unlawful demonstrations that might lead to destruction of property.
Hawa wananchi walifanya division of labor. Walikuchagua ukue rais. Wale wengine wakakuwa upinzani. Kila mtu afanye kazi.
Our constitution has got a whole chapter on how to deal with the criminals. Those sinners who engage in criminal activities, who engage in sins, they should not distract you. Focus on the delivery of the agenda to the Kenyans. The Constitution and the Bible provides a mechanism on how this country will deal with them going forward.
Moigi William, TV 47.
And so as Azimio and Ruto is preparing for this major protest in Nairobi today, Kenyans have been urged to keep off the planned mass action and product boycotts called for by the coalition. The appeal has been made due to concerns that the rallies could escalate into disorder and violence, resulting in casualties, business disruptions, and interference with daily routines, as Chichi Josephine details.
Azimio la Umoja.
A section of Murang'a leaders have castigated the planned demonstrations organized by politicians allied to Azimio coalition. Kiharu legislator Ndindi Nyoro urging the police to remain vigilant and ensure that Kenyans will go on with the activities without any fear.
Sisi hatujaweka tear gas katika hii budget. Pengine ile tear gas itatumiwa ni ile wakati waliandamana 2017 ile ilibaki. Ama ile ya 2007 ile ilibaki. Na unajua tear gas inaweza kuwa imekaa sana ikuwe na ukali ya juu zaidi. Kwa hivyo sisi tunataka kuambia, we have no time to budget for tear gas. We have no time to be intimidated. The only time we have is to work for the benefit of the people of Kenya.
Nataka nimwambie Raila Odinga kwamba sisi ni watu wanaoabudu Mungu na watu Mungu waliobariki na akili. Na kwa hivyo tumemuona ile 18, na kwa hivyo maandamano yake tunajua yanalenga kwamba yeye apate nafasi katika serikali. Na tunajua kwamba naye rais amesema kamwe hapati chochote. Na kwa hivyo aridhike hayo.
Elsewhere in Kiambu County, the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops have asked President William Ruto to offer progressive leadership by reaching out to his political nemesis and opposition leader Raila Odinga for the sake of the country's peace. The truce between the two leaders, they stated, will avert attempts to plunge the country into the risk of violence.
We wish to reinstate the grave concern expressed by all the religious leaders of the return to politically incited tensions. We warn that we are in real danger of taking the slippery road to anarchy caused by the incitement of political players. We are now appealing to all Kenyans and Kenyan leaders across the political divide that we must humble ourselves to sit, to talk and dialogue in order to find solutions.
In Mombasa County, Kenya Kwanza leaders came out to oppose the planned demonstrations to be spearheaded by Azimio leader Raila Odinga in Nairobi on Monday, saying apart from disrupting the school program, the demonstrations might interfere with businesses and the smooth flow of cargo from the port of Mombasa, since truck owners feared taking their vehicles to the highways.
Saizi kuna mizigo itakwenda Nairobi. Kuna biashara nyingi ambazo ziko hapa Mombasa. So katika hili jambo la maandamano lita-affect sana kwanza, kwa sababu kama kuna SGR, kuna malori, saizi hata wenye malori wajua watapeleka mzigo kesho, hawajui vitu zitakwenda wapi. Na kuna watu wengi wanategemea hizo vitu kufanya kazi. So kwa hiyo mimi nataka nipinge maandamano. Sisi kama wakazi wa Mombasa ama wa Coast Province kwa ujumla, atu-support ya maandamano. Tunapinga kwa sababu tunajua effect yake iko wapi.
Elsewhere in Makueni County, the action continues to be strongly criticised by some leaders from Makueni County, the most recent being Kibwezi West Member of Parliament Mwengi Mutuse, saying that the nation needs a discussion on how to revive the economy. The leaders have blamed Azimio leader Raila Odinga for what they said was opposing results of elections every time he loses.
Ugonjwa ambao Kenya iko nao, ugonjwa wa gharama ya maisha, hauko katika maandamano. Ama kuna gani? Because ukiandamana huwezi kureduce the cost ya unga kwa sababu umeandamana. Ama namna gani? Huwezi kureduce cost ya mafuta na sukari kwa sababu umeandamana. In fact, utaendelea na kupanda tu because you are sabotaging the economy.
Likewise, clergymen led by Bishop Ayubo Murio from Narok County have urged the opposition leaders to follow the constitution in solving the issues they have laid on the table instead of influencing people to hold demonstrations.
Tupatie serikali ya Daktari Mheshimiwa William Ruto nafasi ifanye kazi.
Hata kama tunasema maandamano ya amani, maandamano lazima iharibu vitu, ni kama vita tu. Kwa hivyo tunaomba maandamano hiyo ya kesho ikome kabisa na wa viongozi wakae chini waelewane.
Chichi Josephine, TV47.
And from that story by Chichi Josephine, let's take a recap of that session between the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and our very own anchor and political affairs reporter Elizabeth Mutuku prior to this very D-Day, and what he had to say as to what really Kenyans should expect and what triggers this move, and there indeed this is going to be the solution to the numerous problems of Kenya, or whether it is a cause to just trigger the conversation revolving around what needs to be done by the Kenya Kwanza government. A 10-minute session. Let's listen into that.
Maswali yamekuwa yakiibuka kuhusiana na huyu mpiga firimbi, endapo ataaminika kwa njia gani kwamba kile anasema ni cha ukweli, na manake nyinyi tayari mshasema ni ukweli, lakini ataaminika kwa namna gani kwa taifa nzima kwamba lile ambalo anasema ndilo la kweli, na je, ni hatua gani zinaweza kuchukuliwa kulingana nawe kuweza kuleta huu ushahidi, kuweza kudhibitishwa zaidi na kuweza kutumika kushinikiza serikali kwa upande mwingine?
Msema kweli ni sawa, fungua sawa. Kama sisi tunasema uongo, fungua sawa, ikaguliwe, ionekane ya kwamba hii ni uongo. Hiyo ni peke yake. Hakuna, mimi sioni kama unaweza kupata ukweli yote.
Kuna maandamano ambayo yapo wiki ijayo, ambayo ni siku ya Jumatatu, ambayo ni maandamano ya kitaifa. Lakini ndani ya hili, Rais na naibu wake wanasisitiza kwamba endapo yeyote atakiuka sheria, hili litakuwa jambo tofauti, na wale ambao ni waandamanaji watakabiliwa kisheria na vile vile na vyombo vya usalama. Huoni kidogo hawa wataingia, ambao ni wafuasi wako, huenda wakaingia katika hatari?
Kwanza, unajua fungu la kwanza ya katiba letu inasema kwamba mamlaka katika Jamhuri ya Kenya iko kwenye mkono ya wananchi wa Kenya. Wananchi wanaweza kutumia hiyo mamlaka wao wenyewe moja kwa moja, au naweza kutumia hiyo mamlaka kupitia kwa viongozi ambao wamechagua, yani kwa bunge kwa mfano. Sasa kwa sababu wabunge wengi wamepigwa mnada, maana sisi kama wanaazimio ndio tulikuwa na wabunge wengi zaidi, lakini jamaa walipoingia huko kwa njia ya bandia wamepiga watu wetu mnada pande ile. Wengine wanasema tumeenda kutafuta maendeleo sijui nini. Tukasema tutatumia fungu la kwanza, turudi kwa wananchi. Wananchi watumie hiyo uwezo wao Tena fungu la 37 inasema ati Wakenya wako na haki na uhuru kuungana pamoja, kugoma, kupeleka kumbukumbu na vile vile kufanya maandamano. Mradi iwe ni njia ya amani. Kwa sababu tumesema maandamano yetu itakuwa ni ya amani. Na watu wetu wote wameambiwa watakuja wakibeba kitambaa vyeupe. Wengine watabeba bendera la Kenya, taifa. Kisha kwamba sisi ni watu wa amani. Tunajua kwamba kuna njama ya kuleta majambazi wengine, walete vurugu, waingie mabiashara watu wengine, alafu tulaumue ati sisi ndio tumefanya haya. Nimeona huyu bwana Itumbi akiandika mambo machafu kama haya. Na tumesikia bwana Gachagua vile vile akaongea. Tumesikia hata bwana Sonko amepewa jukumu la kuleta watu wafanye mambo kama haya. Tunataka kuambia taifa letu la Kenya yote ijulikane. Kama kutakuwa na fujo yote, haitakuwa ni watu wetu. Itakuwa ni watu wengine. Na kisha wafanye biashara kokote wako. Kwamba Azimio inataka kuimarisha uchumi. Tunapigania watu wanyonge. Hatuwezi kuwa ndio sisi wenyewe tunaleta fujo ya kuharibu biashara ya watu.
Wakati unasema vile inanikumbusha kwamba naibu wa rais Rigathi Gachagua alisema kwamba utakabiliwa ama wana Azimio watakabiliwa kwa njia inayostahili. Ukiwemo katika hao wana Azimio, manake wewe unaongoza katika mstari wa mbele. Je, unahofia usalama wako?
Bwana Gachagua anamwambia asinitishe mimi. Asinitishe mimi hata kidogo. Mimi niko na wafuasi wengi kushinda yeye. Kwa hivyo mimi naongea kwa niaba ya Wakenya wengi kuliko yale ambayo yeye anaongea kwa niaba yao. Nataka kumwambia tuheshimiane. Awache mambo kama haya. Anaongea juu ya hata baba yangu marehemu, mtu ambaye alichangia kwa maisha yake yote kuboresha maisha ya Wakenya hata kuleta uhuru. Anaongea kama ni rika yake. Kwa hivyo yeye anaongea juu ya Raila Odinga ni sawa, lakini hapana guza jina la Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Hapana guza jina la mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Hao wazee wamelala, wacha walale kwa amani. Wewe menyana na mimi. Mimi nimekwambia bwana Gachagua, wewe kazi yako kwanza ulikuwa unafanya kazi kama DO. Kule Laikipia. Ukafutwa kazi kwa sababu wewe mwenyewe ilisemekana ati chakula ya msaada ambayo ilikuwa inapelekwa kwa watu wa Laikipia uliiba. Kwa hivyo wewe si mtu ambaye unastahili kuongea na wa Kenya. Tena wewe umesema Kenya ni kampuni. Ati watu wako na hisa. Wengine wako na hisa mingi zaidi kushinda wengine. Hiyo inakiuka katiba ya taifa letu. Wewe hustahili atakuitwa ati wewe ni makamu wa rais taifa la Kenya. Kwa hivyo ukitaka kufanya fujo yoyote, mimi si serikali, si kuna vyombo vya nguvu. Lakini mimi nakuja wewe kwa jina na kwa niaba ya Wakenya, mamilioni ya Wakenya ambaye wanasikia baya. Baya ameathirika kwa sababu ya sera ambayo nyinyi wenyewe mmetendesha tangu mshike hatamu ya utawala katika taifa hii.
Baadhi ya viongozi kusema kwamba wana Azimio kile ambacho wanatafuta kupitia wewe ni handshake na hakuna kingine. Unajitafutia kuingia serikalini. Hili umelisikia sio mara moja kutoka kwa baadhi ya viongozi wa Kenya Kwanza, vile vile kutoka kwa rais, naibu wake wakisema kwamba hawatakubali Raila Odinga na wana Azimio kuingia serikalini kwa mlango wa nyuma. Hiki ndicho unatafuta?
Kwanza ni porojo tupu kusema ati tunataka kuingia kwa serikali. Serikali sisi tuliingia kwa mara ya kwanza tulipokuwa na bwana Kibaki. Uchaguzi wa 2007. Hakuna Mkenya ambaye hajui ya kwamba nilishinda. Kukatokea fujo, watu walipigana, watu walikufa. Mwishowe shirika la ulimwengu walikuja hapa. Ulimwengu wakasema tuwache silaha, watu wazungumze. Bwana Kibaki akateua watu yake, na mimi vile nikateua watu yangu. Wakati chini na Bwana Kofi Annan ambaye alikuwa mwenyekiti, akisaidiwa na marehemu Rais Benjamin Mkapa na Mama Grace Marcel. Alafu wakakubaliana, na hiyo baadaye tukaidhinisha mimi na Kibaki, ndio tukaunda serikali ya mseto ambayo ilikuwa Kibaki nusu na sisi tuko nusu. Hii ya mwisho ya 2017, yani 2013 hatukutafuta chochote, tulibaki kwa upinzani kwa miaka 5. Hata hii ya 2017 wakati mambo yalikuwa mbaya, ndio Uhuru akanitafuta. Wakati chini tukaongea na tukakubali ya kwamba yale yote ambayo tulikubaliana tukaandika katika kitu kinaitwa kwa kimombo MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, na tukasoma na tukasalimiana wakati huo ambayo inaitwa handshake, ya kwamba tutaunda jopo kazi. Tukaunda jopo kazi ambayo itaangalia yale mabaya yote katika sheria na kikatiba yarekebishwe kabla uchaguzi mwingine maitafuata. Na tukakubaliana kwamba mimi sitaingia kwa serikali. Kwa hivyo mimi, tofauti na ile poroja ambayo inaenezwa na hao watu, si kuingia kwa serikali ya Uhuru ya kuanzia 2018 mpaka maliza. Makamu yake ilikuwa ni Bwana Ruto. Sisi wananasa, utauliza hata bwana Mdavadi, ulize Kalonzo, ulize Wetangula, tulipata nini katika serikali? Hatakuwa hata naibu wa waziri kwa serikali ya Bwana Uhuru na Ruto. Yale yote ni poroja na propaganda. Hata permanent secretary hakuna mmoja ambaye ametoka kwetu. Hata chairman ya board yote, yani hakuna ambaye aliingia huko. Sisi tulikuwa kwa upinzani kwa muda hiyo yote. Okay? Sasa kwa hivyo handshake haikuleta sisi kwa serikali. Hata wakati huu tumesema hatutaki mambo ya handshake. Pata handshake namna gani tunasema tulishinda serikali? Tulishinda uchaguzi. Kama mtu ambaye ndakana ataki handshake ni Bwana Ruto. Sio sisi.
Get it on TV47's YouTube page. But yes, the Azimio and Kenya leader Raila Odinga has organized a mass protest, citing reasons such as reclaiming what he says is stolen election and the high cost of living affecting a majority of Kenyans, and as the motivation behind the decision to march to State House. Our reporter Sharon Baranga spent time with a group of people who say they are prepared for the Monday protests.
Kibra, Nairobi. Is pivotal when it comes to national politics. For years, Kibra has been known to be one of Azimio One Kenya's leader, Raila Odinga's stronghold. In fact, Kibra has been casually defined as Raila's bedroom, and any politician planning to seek an audience with the residents has to get Raila's blessings.
No, and I repeat what I've said.
It is here that we spent some time ahead of Monday's mass protests organized by Azimio. John Musila, one of the youthful leaders in Kibra, says they have mobilized a number of people to take part in the protests.
And our intent again is not to only have a single day mass action, because that will not be as effective. We are going to start on the 20th, and if necessity calls, we are going to be doing mass actions every week or every day, depending on what will be convenient. You're in Kibra today, so we are speaking about the political context of Kibra today. You cannot separate Kibra from opposition politics or active politics in this country. So you must be sure, as we're speaking today, there is serious mobilization towards the 20th, which is a Monday. So the only thing I will ask the state that is now, legal or illegal, is allow people to exercise their constitutional right to come out and demonstrate and push their voice so that you could hear. Because as a majority, by that election, quote unquote, you are the government. But as the minority, we have our voice. It has to be respected, and that is what we are demanding.
And so why are they planning to march to State House?
One, the cost of living. The cost of living haichagui. It does not know Azimio, nor Kenya Kwanza, or Dakoya, or Mwaure, or all that. It knows a Kenyan. So if the cost of fuel is high, the cost of fuel is high for every Kenyan. If the cost of unga is high like it is now, we go to the same shops, 210, 220, 200 flat is the same cost for every Kenyan. And so this is not a maandamano ya siasa hapana. It is a maandamano about our lives, the way we live, the way we expend our things. If you're not able to buy books, mtoto wa Azimio na wa Kenya Kwanza are not able to buy books. If you do not have enough money to pay fees, mtoto wa Azimio na wa Kenya Kwanza wote hawawezi kulipa school fees. So sisi tunasema hii maandamano ni ya Wakenya. And again, electoral reforms. Why is it that over the years we still have to complain about the same thing? Botched elections. 2007, 2013, 2017, 2022. Should we now make it a rhetoric that we have elections and we have to complain about them?
A few meters from where we are, at Kamkunji grounds, we are informed that there is a Bunge la Wananchi Forum, which is basically a citizens' parliament, which takes place here on a daily. We sought to talk to them about the protests.
Na support mia kwa mia jambo la maandamano. Ikiwa hapo ndo tutapata haki yetu, sisi kama Wakenya, naye tumejitolea kwamba kuanzia Jumatatu tumekubali kuacha makazi zetu na tuende tuandamane. Jambo ambalo hatujui kuhusu maandamano hii ambayo itaanza Monday ni kwamba tukianza hii Monday na siku ya hii Monday ipite kabla hatujapata haki yetu, hatujui kama baba ataarisha maandamano. Lakini kwa maoni yetu sisi kama wananchi wa Kenya, unajua kwa hivi tunaongea kwa ujumla wananchi wa Kenya, wengine wamechukulia maandamano ni kama ni kabila moja ambayo wanasisitiza sana habari ya maandamano. Lakini maandamano hata tukiangalia kwa wakati huu imeshika nchi yetu la Kenya kwa ujumla.
Hatutakuwa tunaenda mass action, tunaenda kuchukua ushindi wetu na tutaenda tukishangilia. Hatutaenda kwa vita, tutaenda kushangilia juu tunaenda kuchukua ile victory yenye tulikuwa tumearaukia mwezi wa 8. Kwa hivyo wale wanasema ati tutaenda kwa maandamano, sio maandamano, ni kuenda kuchukua ushindi wetu. Ni vile unaenda kuchukua msichana mwenye ulikuwa lipia mahari, sasa unapewa na wazazi wake rasmi. Uendangi huko na vita ama na kisu. Unaenda kama umevaa suit juu msichana unajua mahali iko na msichana pia amekubali kukuja kwako. Tumekasirika Kenya mzima kama wale wa bodaboda juu tuliporauka asubuhi leo tulipata mafuta imeongezwa. Na tukirudi kwa makastoma wetu tukiwauliza, wanatuambia hawezi lipa ongeza pesa juu hata hao wenyewe hawana pesa. Kutoka asubuhi hatujabeba, hata ndio maana unaona nimekaa hapa. Juu hakuna customer. Hawezi ongeza pesa juu hawana, na sisi pia wametuongezea mafuta.
Mzazi kama hana chakula kwake, mtoto atazidi akilia. Lazima tafute njia yoyote ya kutafuta chakula. Sisi ni watoto wa hii serikali. Serikali iliyoko mamlakani hatafuti njia ya vile sisi tutashiba. Wanatuambia wanatuletea mbolea. Je, mbolea utalima ukiwa na njaa? Je, mbolea ukipokea leo utashiba? Ni kitu itachukua muda. Kwa hivyo tutabeba masufuria na vijiko ama masufuria na mwiko, tukienda kuuliza chakula kule State House. Si huko ndio State House? Ndio mahali baba iko. Baba wa taifa. Tunaenda kutafuta chakula. Kama hana tutamwambia wewe sasa kaa kando tuweke huyu baba mwingine.
We are so saddened that instead of helping the common citizens, we are being oppressed. We are being oppressed by some few leaders who only look at their self-interest and are not looking for the common mwananchis.
So what if they do not get what they are demanding from the government? What happens next?
That is a question that is neither here nor there. If there are no solutions now, maybe the pressure we are putting in the government is what is going to lead them to take action. So definitely we are expecting solutions. I believe strongly that this is one way towards the right direction, because we believe we're going to change a lot of things, and things are going to work best for the people of this country.
Going to Maandamano on Monday means we are going to claim or to inquire about the manifestos that we were being promised by the Kenya Kwanza. And it is our right to do this. It is constitutional. Any person that is seeing this as disturbing the government is wrong and should go and read the article in the constitution that supports Maandamano or the protests. It will be peaceful. It is just a matter of inquiring from the government or requesting the government to lower the living standard. If they will do those and other agendas like inclusivity in the selecting the commissioners in the forthcoming IBC selections, we are going to be okay.
But there are dissenting voices that are scared of the aftermath of Monday's mass protests. Those opposed to the idea, citing insecurity that might affect the day-to-day activities.
So sisi polisi wakuja tu watusindikize namna hiyo tukiongea bila kukosana. Lakini wakianza kutuprovoke kidogo na tear gas, sasa tena hiyo unajua itakuwa bahati mbaya, itakuwa sisi.
I want to tell the police that are going to be there in the Maandamano, this is not a matter of war. We are going for our constitutional right, and it is your right and constitutionally to protect the mwananchi. Because if you look at the police, they are also suffering. They are not being paid from heaven. They are being paid from our taxes.
Serikali isijaribu kutumia askari kutupiga kwa sababu hatuendi kuharibu vitu za mtu. Askari pia ni wanadamu kama sisi. Je, yeye akija kunipiga hana ndugu yake ama hana nyanya yake ambaye ako kati yetu? Atakuwa anafikiria vipi? Therefore, tuende kama wa Kenya, sio kama Mjaluo vile wengine wanafikiria. Hii si ya ukabila, hii ni ya Mkenya sababu ya shida ambayo inaonekana Kenya.
Well, with the Monday protests set to take place, religious leaders have been at the forefront, urging Raila to stop the demonstrations and promote peace. Meanwhile, 3 other African countries are expected to have mass protests on Monday. South Africa's opposition leader, Julius Malema, has called for mass protests to push for the resignation of President Cyril Ramaphosa. Other countries planning to have demonstrations are Tunisia and Nigeria. Sharon Baranga, TV 47.
All right, and we want to shift gears to the conversation. We have 3 gentlemen that join us for this very one, so that we look into this matter. Remember, it is what cuts across the different parts of the world. But equally, it is one of the biggest stories that we'll be focusing on for the better part of the day, just to look at how the events will pan. But all we hope for is that aspect of peace. And so joining me for this very conversation is Nordin Kagai. It's been a minute since you were here. How have you been? I'm good. Wakili, thank you so much for creating time. We also have Peter Mushindu, who is with us this morning. Peter Mushindu, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yes, Peter Mushindu, good morning, is our governance expert as well as a professor, and that is Dr. Ken Kambona, an international development consultant, as we get into this very conversation. Thank you so much for creating time to be with us. Allow us to take a quick short breather, Mr. Director. And we take a short breather and then we come back to the gentlemen for this very matter.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
There is only one planet in the universe that we know of that can support life. It's called Earth.
Just imagine at our generation wiping out a whole subspecies. Don't you think it's sad?
This world cannot really survive when we live alone. Cannot also survive if lions and rhinos just live alone. We need all the organisms together.
Join us as we get to learn about the animals that live on this beautiful planet every Sunday, 7:30 p.m.
It's a new season. Gathered for one reason.
We have looked at Pan-Africanism as a way to unite all of us.
Climate change is the one that's affecting our marine life.
Debate.
Tell me, if we did not borrow, where would we be?
What does GMO offer? It offers longer shelf life for these foods.
Devolution was not a one-man army that was going to come here and take us by storm all on its own.
Young people drawn from across hundreds of schools in the country. The battle of minds. This is the debate cycle.
You're watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
All right, and we get to this conversation. We have Wakili here. Thank you so much once again, Nordin Kagai, for creating time, governance expert Peter Mushendu, as well as Dr. Ken Kambona, who's an international development consultant based at IGAD Djibouti, advising 8 member countries of IGAD. You know, when we talk about IGAD, we know that the people of Somalia are not very happy with IGAD. The people of South Sudan equally not very happy with IGAD. And perhaps that is one of the conversations that we'd love to have, but not for today. We come back home and discuss what is playing out. I know there's so much in relation to news, but then again, the biggest story of the day, that declaration by the police in Nairobi. Amson Bungei says that, well, it's unfortunate that, you know, all this who would wish to picket and demonstrate have not met the threshold as expected by the Public Order Act. But then again, you know, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and the Azimio team maintain that they will be out in the streets, peaceful demonstrations for that matter. But then again, also, the Interior CS maintains that as well the country should not worry, because they are up there to make sure that we are protected. As the president would say, it is for the bishops to pray, but for them to deal with this matter. You have the confidence that you are protected. Let's start with you, Doctor. It's the first time that you're here, so we give the privilege of speaking to this matter.
Thank you. Thank you. Good. So, thank you, and good morning, viewers. I think this is a day that it's a day of reckoning in terms of, after the election, I think probably the most important day could be today in terms of the destiny and the direction the country takes. And therefore, it's a day that either side, the government side and the side that is picketing, takes seriously. So, and hence the word showdown, because it's whatever happens today will determine how either of the groups move, and so it is out there. We are still not sure what will happen, but I think as wananchi, the most important thing, or as Kenyans, the most important thing is to maintain peace as much as possible. I know sometimes things go beyond the Rubicon and could lead to chaos. That's not also for us to determine at this point in time. But I think it is very important that we restrain both sides, both the authorities, the police, and the wananchi in terms of handling today's event.
Well, before we get to the nitty-gritty details of this, Peter Mushendo, in your own wisdom, what do you suppose we'll have to do to maintain that aspect of peace?
I think when I was here last, I said that both the protesters and those who own business in the CBD, which I think will be the most affected, have their rights protected in law. The picketers have their right to picket, and the owners of business have their right to operate their business, and either of the right must not infringe on each other. So I think today what we would call on is the restraint by the police. I know that they have already declared today's picketing illegal, but I do not want to foresee a situation where small triggers get the police to actually blow these things out. So I think what we need to do on the part of the police is to exercise restraint. Let them man people's businesses and government installations within the city. And I pray that they do not get to be triggered by small things, because majorly those who are picketing will count on our police being triggered by small things. And I pray and hope that they have been taken through that picketing does not necessarily have to turn nasty, not unless people want to invade people's businesses. I would pray that the Kenya Police today will exercise restraint, because the Honorable Raila Odinga and the cohorts are counting on the police to become agitated and make these temperatures flare and turn this thing into some political win or so.
Are they?
Yeah, I mean, let me tell you.
And I remember the last time you were here, you were having it hard to accept that there's a possibility that the Azimio team or the Right Honorable Raila Odinga would lead this process of demonstration and picketing without us having to experience some essence of animosity.
What I know for a fact is that history, and I keep repeating, I need someone to give me an alternative history other than what I know and what is out there, that there has never been anything peaceful about Raila Odinga being on the street, unless I can be given an alternative history that I have no idea about. So what I said, and I still maintain that the police must allow those who are picketing to picket, but they must also take care and make sure that businesses and protectorates of government and institutions of government and private institutions are safeguarded, because within the said peaceful protest in quote, we know there is a wing that comes to actually laying havoc on people's businesses. And I maintain that if anybody tries to attack anybody's business today, I then again, as much as we are asking the police to make sure that they are not agitated, if someone is going to attack anybody's business today, he must be treated as a criminal, because that goes outside the realm of peaceful protest. But if they don't touch businesses, let them be allowed to move whenever they want to move in this city. They can be allowed as long as they remain peaceful. The police must not let there be any issues that will stop them from doing that. But if it comes to people's business, then unfortunately so, the police will have come to force and ensure that people's businesses are not attacked.
It's interesting to see the business community equally saying that they would want to go out there to protect their own businesses. Is this lack of faith in the capability of our officers? And as well, when we see the UDA side as well, sending a communique to say that we'll also have our very own, across the different parts of the city, just to show these people how peaceful demonstrations then are carried. And this confirmed by the deputy chair, that is the UDA deputy chair, Hassan Omar. And then you ask yourself, first, do we lack faith in the police officers that we have, such that we feel like, we have to go extra and, help them man the activities in the city. In such a scenario, then the police proceed to say that, well, we're not going to accord this business community, the go ahead to proceed and picket because they did not present this, notice or this request 3 days before as stipulated in the Public Order Act. And so clearly also says the same about the Azimio demonstrations. If the Azimio are going to proceed and have their demonstrations across the country or the city or the country, so to speak, don't you think also the business community will be pushed to that level where they say, I mean, if Azimio is going out there and theirs was declared illegal, we might as well go out there to protect ourselves? Then what would guarantee us peace?
First and foremost, we have a problem, which is ignorance of the law, both from the police and both from those who are in government. That is courtesy of the UDA party led by Raila. If you can see the communique that is out there, we don't know if it's fake or true. Because one, the police, we are not in a country where we seek permission to demonstrate or picket.
The law speaks to it.
What you
Constitution.
do, you just notify them so that they provide security. It is not for them to say yes or no. So we are not in a country where we are seeking permission.
When are you supposed to notify them? 3 days prior, as they say?
It should be in good time so they can actually prepare themselves. But you see, they are putting it in such a way that you need to seek permission.
And they decide
it's like
whether...
you cannot go out there unless they say so. And that is what Article 37 talks about. It says you have freedom to demonstrate, to picket, to send a petition. Now, it says it should be peaceful and should be unarmed. That is what the article says. So you should demonstrate and picket unarmed and very peaceful. Now, the other thing is, we are seeing those in government, courtesy of the party now, who are saying they will like to retaliate and actually counter. What are you countering? Because when you say we'll go to their home states, that in itself becomes trespass. Because you only demonstrate, picket, and petition in public institutions,
spaces,
public spaces. So that in itself tells you ignorance of the law. And number two, when does a government start demonstrating? You realize the easiest way is we need to be honest. You see, the business community, someone somewhere is funding them. It is you're more or less trying to show them that you can also have your own muscle, and that's not what we need. Like Peter said very, very openly, what we need to do is the police need to maintain law and order. It's not for Azimio to maintain law and order. All they need to do is march. Let them march. Let them walk.
What is this that the president says? The Right Honorable Raila Odinga should be responsible for, his supporters and making sure that there's that aspect of peace.
You honestly can't be responsible for anyone, because at the end of the day, that march will bring about so many people. Your supporters from the other side, will bring about those who have come to make a killing that day, out to mug people. So you can't control anyone. That's why the police need to be active that day. And like he said, to restrain themselves, not to get into a contest. You saw like last week in Kisumu, they were being told, "Usharatia gas tu moja, ata moja." You see, they didn't lob one, and that demonstration just ended. Now the moment you lob one, and that is what now, that is it. Now it becomes a running battle. And they even say, bila tear gas, hii kitu si tamu. It is not a maandamano, So the police need to be very careful and need to be intelligent enough to know that let these people walk. Protect property. That is what you need to do. Make sure that you should be keen enough to see who is causing problems, and you actually take care of that and protect property. Because you cannot it's like what is happening in South Africa. The president is telling Malema, you'll have to take care of those who are demonstrating. You can't. The numbers are too big. How will you do that? Because there are so many people who either want to ruin your demonstration, so that they might send their own people in there to actually go and cause havoc. So that's why we are saying the police need to be very active today. Do not be overzealous. Do not be in the mood to be confrontational. Because sometimes it's like they send those who are straight from the training camp, to just, maybe they feel like I need to exercise what I was taught. Just be smart enough, protect property, protect lives, so that we actually have a smooth demonstration. Let people walk. If they want to walk the whole day, let them walk until they get to a point where they're tired. If they want to speak at the top of their voices, let them do it. So long as no property is being destroyed by them. Because once they do that, now that's what Kindiki says, they'll be dealt with ruthlessly. Wow.
Interesting. Daktari, I'm glad that you mentioned South Africa, and we know that these protests as well, or protests of this nature, are playing out across the other different parts of the the world. Right. I mean, even Trump himself expects arrest and says that, you know what, there's that need for protest. But look at Tunisia, look at South Africa, look at Nigeria as well, equally playing at this very day. South Africans out already, you know. I don't know what the roads are like for us in the country, or maybe generally the city is like for you who have just come in. I came in a little bit early. It was a little bit deserted, but that was quite early. Right. Maybe the situation is different right now?
Yeah, maybe we start with that. I think I couldn't come on time because of the same reason that the road that I normally use, or the route that I normally use is blocked. And then I went to the next, you know, option, and equally it was blocked. And these are areas that lead to State House. I think 2 kilometers or so from State House. So I believe, even in the areas that I never moved through or past, they are still also blocked, and so it's already inconveniencing. If we talk of business, it is already inconveniencing business per se. So that's number one. But now coming to the point that you're making about the development continentally, yeah, I think first and foremost, Africa is becoming more and more enlightened on issues of rights. Their rights, the Africans, you know, whether it's in South Africa, in Nigeria, in Tunisia. But again, there's also picketing in France regarding pension. So, and like you've said, even in the US, there could be one where Trump is agitating for, you know, some, which Trump is agitating for. So, what are we saying? We are saying that this development in Africa, I believe here we are discussing more about chaos and destruction of business, but I think the messaging is being lost. I mean, the messaging is very important, that what is the state of the nation? So from either side, you know, this is the time that the government, you know, Ruto should come out and say, gentlemen, ladies, I inherited this kind of a country. It was in shambles, and give a State of the Nation address, even if it is you know, a short one. There's normally the constitutionally allowed one. But this is what I inherited. This is the messaging. On the other side, again, the messaging should be, yes, we are hearing you, Mr. President, but this is what you pledged. And that messaging is disappearing in this chaos and tear gas.
Is it really? And perhaps, you know, it's like you read my mind. Because the next question then would have been, just how genuine are these protesters? Are Kenyans really fighting for their rights? Is it a question of Right Honorable Raila Odinga? Or really it is Kenyans going to the streets because they have felt the pinch and the difficulties that they're going through?
There you go. Yeah, that's the question we should ask. Yes, there is. Everybody saying there's the pain of, you know, food shortage and you know, drought, and thank God the rains are coming, or else we are seeing some of it, and this. But it is being lost in that showdown. You know, there's a showdown, more or less. It's like, you can't beat us. You've always disturbed us with all this picketing. On the other side, there is like, well, you promised us something, we are not seeing it. So that's where we are losing it a little bit, and we need to, as a country, as a continent, like you've said, we need to start working towards that messaging bit of it. There's nothing, as my two colleagues have said, there's nothing wrong in picketing. It is the messaging that we want to hear. The next,
Peter Mushendo, away from the tribal affiliation, away from, you know, this is Baba's stronghold, and the fact that he enjoys, you know, maybe 40% of the support in the country, aside from, you know, party affiliations and all that, do you suppose that Kenyans, those ones that are going to turn up, if they do, will be out in the streets based on what has affected them, based on angling and fighting for their rights, based on the fact that they've been disgruntled and they really want the government to address some of this matter, not necessarily because they think this will be addressed now, but perhaps just to talk to, you know, the government and remind them that we are here because of the previous governments. And if they did things right, we would not have been here. So we want you to do things right.
You know, I've really seen those who are planning the picketing trying to equate their picketing with that in South Africa. And when you look at the reason why South Africa keep going on the street, because this will not be new, it is just a clamor of what has been happening a number of years. They go to the street because of there is unequal and segregated distribution of land, both in urban and rural areas. There is a serious demand for housing in South Africa, which might become a global problem if it's not checked. There is a problem with industrialization that quite a big number of South Africans cannot get a place to even do manual work. And when you look at the history of the reasons why South Africa keep going, you will find, despite the politics of the day, there is the genuineness of the reasons they go to the street. If you look at Soweto, the issue of housing has been a problem since the apartheid days. Come to this country. Why are people going to the street? And I told you last week, the biggest problem in this country, it is dishonest of the reason why we go to the street. If you look at the basic reason why the Honorable Raila Odinga is taking people to the street, it is based on the so-called high cost of living. Was Unga still costly when Raila was working with the previous government?
Yeah.
It was costly. Was life easy when he was working with the previous government? It was not easy. It was very costly. But all of a sudden, now that there is a new regime that does not favor him, he has now said they are going to the street because of the high cost of living. I mean, that dishonesty is what is making the very reason why they are on the street look suspicious and look unreal. Because why are we going to the street? I will tell you, Rinda, in this republic, and Aldin will agree with me, we have a problem with land distribution. But nobody has ever addressed that issue to make people to go to the street. The same people that were celebrating milling companies in the previous government being given money to produce unga that would cost 100 shillings, which apparently money left the central account and never got to the millers. They are the very people who are telling us now that we should go to the street. What I am saying is that regardless of the political affiliation of the Honorable Raila Odinga, we have not come to a place where, as a nation, we go out on the street based on genuine reasons. And that's the truth. Because look at the people who are coming out. I know he has a system support from Kibra. The people who will come out in Kibra to talk about high cost of living, they would instead be talking about housing and sanitation, which is the major problem for Kibra. But they are out here talking about high cost of living. And
Mushedu, I'm glad that you bring this up, because, yes. I mean, what are the chances that even if they were genuine with them coming out on the streets, that this, protest would yield? Because it's not the first time that we see this. And the people of Kibra have struggled with housing.
But I'll tell you, what the planners of today's protest are trying to achieve, it is to achieve a serious mass protest that would bring this country to a standstill. But now the problem that I am saying, Rinda, is the reasons they are using to do it are not genuine enough to convince people to do it. Look at Tunisia. The reasons that made them do their uprising were very genuine, that all Tunisians from all the walks of life, you remember the uprising in Tunisia, the uprising in Egypt. These are genuine reasons that are causing people to go to the street. And I'll tell you, there is a saying, I can't remember the person who wrote it, he said that if we are cramming for change, the people who are not affected must become agitated as those who are affected.
Yeah.
And that means you have to have very genuine reasons to make me, who is not affected, maybe to become agitated to join into what you believe. And
Doctor, you agree?
That is why we miss the mark. Yeah. Let me tell you, if the reasons are genuine enough, they would make Rinda, who was not interested in that protest, to become interested. And that is where we are failing. Their reasons are not genuine enough to push masses into supporting them.
Reality is that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga might not have felt the pinch of the high cost of living at any point, and many others that are leaders of Azimio. But even before we come to you, Nordin, I just want to hear his experience on the road this morning.
I've gone through 3 police checks from Kikuyu coming all the way to town. But it is true people have deserted the roads because I would normally find a jam that is caused by some number of bumps along Kangemi route that was not there today. I would find a jam from Brookside Drive coming to the former West Roundabout. There is always some jam there. It is not there.
What do you suppose that signifies? That either the protesters are not going to come out in solidarity, or that really it is a
most of the people, one thing you have to know that today was supposed to be the day when the kids are taken back to school. No parent would risk taking the kid to school today and risk a potential conflict with anyone who is protesting. Number 2, most businesses people would preferably want to stay home. They would say that one day will not bring down their business. It will keep them more safe. And this again is advised by the history that I told you, that every time Raila Odinga is in the street in Nairobi, businesses are being vandalized, businesses are being affected. And therefore, even if I was a business person, as much as I have faith that the police will do their work, I would feel more safer if I am at home today and allow them to do whatever they want today. I will not die because I did not do business one day. So it's all about that personal care that you take care of your business. As much as the police will take care, let the police take care of those businesses even though they are closed. So I think majorly that's why we don't have a lot of people on the road. Kids are supposed to go back to school, they are not going. Quite a number of people in CBD are employed by private businesses, which necessarily may not open today. So you will see that the public service vehicles will not have so many people to bring in town. Basically, it means because they are the people who cause a lot of jam on the road. They will drop and pick anybody anywhere. So I think it's Kenyans trying to take care of themselves, as they hope that government, when they remain home, government will take care of the installations, that no criminals will break into their businesses when they are at home.
Okay. Now, this is what Dr. Kaikai says. I agree with the doctor on the other side. The messaging is lost. UDA has lost the communication aspect and strategy, that the UDA are simply fighting back. They have no solution. Both, parties are literally lost. Nordin, picking it up from what the two gentlemen are alluding to, that perhaps we might not be ready enough for this, that one of the reasons why we go out to the streets, if Kenyans are going to go out, and I mean, we have seen them going out, I mean, across the different parts of the country before this grand one, is really not genuine. It's really not about the difficulties that they are going through and that they would wish for the government to address the same. Perhaps it's just that aspect of political following and affiliation and tribe and all that matter. Is that then to say that there's more than meets the eye, that really it's about Right Honorable Raila Odinga and his interests, or there's someone who's funding these activities as well, looking at the fact that they're playing out across other parts of the African continent and maybe beyond, as you tell us your experience on the road this morning?
The funny thing is that we have decided to look at our politics through the cult of personalities. In that I support person X, I don't support person Y. So even if person Y tries to prove something that is true, I won't follow. Realize that is a problem. I do believe that we do have issues of going to the street to demonstrate or protest. There are issues. We have to be honest with one another. We have issues of lecturers having been paid for 4 months. That is an issue. And since that we are borrowing a lot from South Africa, let me take us down the memory lane as to why South Africa is where it is today, courtesy of Malema and the EFF. They have been protesting against ESCOM for the past few months. I told you, every Thursday from 7 p.m. Their issue with ESCOM is that the government added 18% tax on electricity. That in itself was a problem. And then ESCOM switched off electricity. So they have been saying, even if you listen to Malema, bring back our electricity. Number 2, they're talking about gender-based violence. They're talking about unemployment. They're talking about the Falafala farm where the robbery happened, where money was stashed by Ramaphosa. Yeah. So if you look at it, we do have issues. Do you have issues with our electricity in Kenya? Yes, we have issues. Right now, if you buy tokens, we used to get a breakdown. Now we are being told other charges. What are other charges? That is a question. If you look at the rate of unemployment, it is high. And then you see the same government that now goes and wants to appoint 50 assistant ministers. You ask yourself, are you losing the plot? Because whatever you campaign for and whatever you are doing are two different things. And we have to be honest with one another. In as much as you support a government, you should be alive to the fact that you should critique it. And by critiquing, I don't mean you insult them. Yeah. You critique it when it goes wrong. This notion of a cult of personality, where you see no evil and you just support everything, that is the problem that we have. We do have those who are in government or supported the government of the day. Are they suffering the rest of the Kenyans? Of course they are. So there are issues. But now because Raila Odinga is leading the cause, they won't support it. They will tarnish it. You realize? So at the end of the day, we need to dissociate politics from our issues. Because you see, politics is all about interest. He might be championing his own interests, but when will you champion yours? Yeah. Because if you have an issue with the cost of electricity in Kenya, it is your personal issue. He doesn't feel that. He won't even know how hard it is to buy food, to fuel the vehicle, because the government is it's doing that for him. So we need to rise above these political issues where you think as Azimio, as UDA. Think as a Kenyan. And that is why you see in South Africa, they've embraced that struggle because it's beyond ANC and EFF. Because now they are saying we have certain issues that we want sorted. Our minerals, nationalize our minerals, you get. So at the end of the day, that is the problem that we have. Because now we're in a situation where somebody is lying to us. We have those who are saying they inherited a dilapidated economy. There are those who are saying you're in government, you have failed. There are those who are, and then you have a scenario where those who are in power are still hell-bent on making the former president a boogeyman. In everything you do, it is the former president. The former president, you have to realize that he's gone. You have to raise the occasion and realize that you have to work. This issue of Uhuru being a scapegoat for everything won't help you. And if at all, for example, they are saying he's with Raila in the Mandamano, when did he stop enjoying constitutional rights by being a retired president? You get. If you look at, for example, the national shutdown in SA, Thabo Mbeki, a former president, is supporting EFF. If you look at someone like, what's his name, the former president of Tanzania, Jakaya Kikwete, he supported Magufuli. Right. He's supporting Suluhu. So what is this obsession with Uhuru? It's like you'd want, it reminds me of a certain wrestler. It's called Roman Reigns, who whenever he shows up, he begs and cries for acknowledgement. What is this that you want him to acknowledge? You are in power. Work. This notion, and Musalia said this very well, this notion of always, this scapegoat notion, that currency will expire. Because you see, it's now 6 months, it's still Uhuru. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, still Uhuru. The same people that voted for you will vote against you. Because he's long gone. So this issue of anything that happens and you come and tell us, Uhuru A, Uhuru B, Uhuru, we don't care about Uhuru boss. He's gone. You are the one who's there. You sought the mandate. So if things are getting hot, work. Because at the end of the day, do you know if they implement their plan as it is, for example, Raila Odinga won't have anything to talk about. But the moment all you think about is Raila has made a statement, you plan a Thanksgiving, in quotes, to counter him. I've never seen a government that is always countering the opposition. It's like you're the one offering checks and balances. Because now we don't know who's government, who's opposition. Okay. And now today we are going to see the opposition is demonstrating, the government is answering. So you ask yourself, when do you want to start working? Because if you will be reacting to everything Raila Odinga does, 5 years you will be reacting to him, you won't achieve anything. And you can see from the appointments that have been made, and thank God to the one who came up with the recycle bin in the computer, because rejects have been recycled, are now going into office.
Well, and I'll come back to that, and perhaps even ask Doctor, is it that easy to forget Uhuru? Is it that easy to forget a president that they once said, you know, is too young to retire, and also overlooking the kind of power, you know, that the Uhuru family or the Kenyatta family then has had in this country for the longest of time? Is this a person that you can wish away, looking across the different parts as well of the global fraternity, of how previous presidents have also dominated activities in the regime that they perhaps have left, presidency, and then another regime comes in, but they still, in a huge way control the activities of this very country. So we take a quick short break, and then we also come and understand some more as to what really the Constitution dictates on this question of the right to picket and whether we need it, looking at the fact that we say sometimes it gets nasty, sometimes it gets to a point where it's all animosity. Do we really need to have this clause in the Constitution that allows for us to go out there and demonstrate in the event that we deem some things not working well? After this break.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories. Platinums.
We give them an opportunity to do cake tasting. We normally say our cakes are beautiful inside out, and we are able to deliver what we promise. We just turned 6 years. Every 1st of Feb, we started in 2017, February 1st, and I think the journey has been quite exciting. We have enjoyed every bit of it. It's quite fulfilling. And I think what I would do differently is starting earlier than 2017.
Monday, 6:30 p.m.
Tunawajua kwa majukumu yao. Wanapotumikia wananchi katika afisi zao, tunawafahamu. Wanapoingia katika majengo haya kutunga sheria, tunaelewa. Lakini je, tunafahamu safari yao ya maisha na walipotoka?
If you build a good relationship with the people on the ground and you're a person, there are people who will be loyal to you and they cannot be changed by anybody.
I feel that this is the election. This is where God is leading you to.
Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakupa nafasi kutangamana nao kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutuku.
Don't say hapa panda vid basi likoishia hapo. Nikamwambia boss kuna gap. Utafanya nini? Mimi ningeenda kazupa. Ara kataka tuko mpompe ntanka. I did it from my head.
Sisi kwetu ni Valentines. Kila siku. If you look keenly, mimi nakuanga nampea maua twice a week.
Well, wondering what else your favorite celebrity is all about? Catch the eagle himself. Hey! DJ Listening. Every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. on Dr. Ofueneke Tonight. 7. The home of untold stories.
Welcome back to the broadcast, and we have Daktari, we have Wakili Nordin here, as well as Peter Mushindu, as we unpack what is likely to play out in the course of the day, but as well just look at some of our laws and how they align to the conversation this morning. Before we get to know whether President Uhuru Kenyatta is a person that you can overlook and say gone are his days, let us soldier on, let us focus. I would understand what Nordin is trying to say, that what you have to serve the people, you have to work for the people, and forget that there was another regime prior. But is this a regime that you just want to overlook? And especially when they say that maybe President Uhuru Kenyatta is involved in these conversations of the protests as well as funding them. But before then, this is what has been circulating, and a reminder to the people who would wish to go and join the protest, the importance of it and the fact that the law allows for it. They say that, did you know that every Kenyan has right to protest, and as enshrined in Article 37 of the Constitution, or that is 2010 Constitution? Did you know that understanding your right to protest is important for protecting your freedom of assembly and association? And that's basically what we've been asking. Do you know what you don't need, that you do not need police permission to participate in any peaceful protest? The question is just how peaceful would these ones be, and why is it that the police then would say all these demonstrations have been rendered illegal based on the fact that they did not meet the threshold in terms of even the requests and the timelines that they were presented, or the times that they were presented to the police, and a couple of other matters that would speak to the legal aspect of it. But then I ask this, Daktari.
Yeah.
If we all are privy to the fact, or I mean have this argument that it can never be a peaceful protest, and especially this ones that is run by the opposition, or so to speak, why then do we have to incorporate this in the Constitution? Do we need to to relook into this? And we've had conversations of amending the Constitution, but perhaps we've not had anybody speak to this matter. Do we need to have this clause enshrined in the Constitution if it is going to land us in trouble?
Yes, we do. And this is why. Linda, sometimes we forget many things, that there's always, almost every week, a protest going on somewhere in Kenya. Maybe somewhere in Baringo, some are even in Sugoi, some are in Kisumu, some market women are protesting somewhere. So protests are there, and they are constitutional, and we should continue with them. Teachers always go on strike and then protest. So do nurses and doctors, and we see that every time, now and then. Now, the problem comes in when you start personalizing, and that's where I disagree with my good friend Peter here, in the sense that when you start saying Raila, it takes a different connotation. I mean, I don't hold fort for Azimio at all. Actually, I have a personal problem, I can almost say it on national TV, with Raila in terms of some of the things that are done. But when we know that the history of this country has been very much defined by protests. So the person in Raila is just using when we needed to change the Constitution, Section 2A, it was protest that drove that to change. When we needed to form political parties act and what have you, the famous Kivuda Kibwana NCCK, these were protests. So Raila is using the same, I'm sorry I'm using his name again, but those who in Kenya, we tend to get things done when you put pressure. Now, how that holds is what is important. That is, what is the end game? Like today, what have we asked ourselves, what is Raila's end game? Okay, there you go. Suppose the president opened the doors, and then Azimio team, I'll use Azimio team from now onward. The Azimio team get access to State House. So then they present the paper, whatever it is, to the memorandum to the president. What do you think would happen? People would go back home almost singing praise of the president, that he has received ours. I said, taangalia hii mambo, you go home. But now when it comes to us, the mindset is already that we are going to bomb businesses. We are going to, throw tear gases. We are going to destroy businesses. We are going to, and then that creates that negative aspect of of protesting, which is in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Why don't we, just the other day, I think people protested, were picketing on issues that are, health related in a county like Homa Bay. That's my county. So I think that answers that part of the question. But then the issue, and my colleague raised it, the issue about forgetting the president, the past president, in terms of, I think it is being brought. I've embraced this new government fully. I could say I was leaning towards Azimio, which I could even say I am. But the issue is that there's a government in place. And this government has to do 1, 2, 3, 4. It has nothing to do with Raila. I don't even want to mention that name again. I mean, yeah, as a public figure. But now the issue comes in the sense that why should we be mentioning these names at the highest level possible all the time? We should tone down, like the DP should tone down on attacking the personalities of, let's say, Uhuru Kenyatta. Then it will die off. Obama was president. He's still very active, but the Democratic Party only uses Obama when they are, like having an election and things are tough. He retains that popularity. Well, maybe that cannot happen in Kenya at the moment, but the issue is the former presidents can be active. There's nothing wrong in that. They can also define how things move because they have the experience. And why are former presidents then taken to elections to be observers of elections? Because they know they've lived that. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, we are very lucky to have former presidents with us. Any country is lucky to have former president because the current president can consult. The same, it happened in Tanzania with Magufuli versus the former guys, and even Mkapa. The same happens in South Africa, Mbeki and the rest. So former presidents are good to have because then you can consult them because you are working in the interest of the Kenyan citizen. How
can you consult them when you are busy pointing a finger
that is now
that's
the
also
thing.
The question, yes.
Yeah, it behoves you as the sitting guy because it is magnanimous for you as the sitting guy to go and you have all the power. You have the military power. You have everything, constitutional power. You can go and say, my friend, my brother, let's just get this country moving. We hear about you funding this, mandamanos and what have you. I really would beg in the interest of the country which you led very, very well. Which you led very, very well. You can praise him for what you care.
I think I've said this and I'll repeat it again. It is not in the interest of government to advance the agenda of opposition. And I told you, everything that happens, any development that will happen in this republic, it starts in a conversation. We start a conversation with Daktari here. We want to do something in Homa Bay. Then we take it to the next level. We want to explore what are the possibilities of doing that. And the moment any development agenda is lost in a conversation, then that entire particular development agenda is totally lost. And this is my fear, that the conversation of what the opposition intends to do in this country, and I told you, the opposition is like those people who are not invited in a party. They will say that the food was not done well, the cooks were not qualified, the dress code was not a good one, because that is the responsibility of those who are not inside the party to talk about the party in a negative way. So the opposition is not doing anything out of the ordinary of what they are supposed to do. But if today Raila speaks and we answer him tomorrow, then tomorrow Raila will answer you, and then the day after tomorrow you will come to answer what Raila answered to what you said. And then it becomes a game of musical chairs. He said, she said, you know that thing. So I think for me, I agree with Daktari that the government's responsibility is to deliver on the promise that we made to the people of Kenya. And I keep saying this at the risk of sounding like I am not supporting the government that I work day and night to get. Raila Odinga does not stop this government from speaking to international investors. Raila Odinga does not stop this government from holding cabinet meetings that will see how we are going to restrain the weakening of the shillings against the dollar. Raila Odinga does not stop this government exchequer from looking at the options on how we are going to address the issue of higher electricity bills. Raila Odinga is just on the gallery doing what he is supposed to do as the opposition leader. And I told you the other time, the Honorable William Ruto, my president who I support, over and over has requested to get a strong opposition that is doing its responsibility. And I think he has just gotten what he asked for. And therefore, it is in the interest of Wanjiko for government to focus on the agendas they promised Wanjiko. Because let me tell you, between September and January, how much of Raila were you hearing? Because nobody was mentioning him. The moment you mention Raila Odinga, it is like he has become like Lazarus.
And the people watching this morning, the people watching this morning reminding us.
So I think for me, we have resurrected a monster by mentioning him at every opportune moment, and Raila Odinga has taken advantage of that particular thing. So I think for me, I agree, the government must tone down on the issues to do with Raila. Let Raila do his business and nonsense he wants to do. Government, you have a responsibility. You gave a manifesto to Kenyan. Focus on that manifesto. When you up to the podium, speak about Hustler Fund, speak about the junior secondary, how are we going to streamline it, speak about how are we going to make sure that this country moves from single grid to macro grids to manage our electricity bills, speak about issues that are concerning the Mwananchi. Forget Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga is in his element.
Duncan Jau says Ruto will end Raila's legacy for good. He is the medicine to heal this nation and bring order to our politics. But Fatuma Mayunge says people lose discussion. It's not about Raila. It's about we the people. It's not a Luo affair. Yes. People don't understand. If Raila is not going to speak to this, then the people or somebody just within the masses will come out and speak to this matter.
I will live and support that statement. One time, I used to work for the Honorable George Nyanja, the former MP for Limuru, between the year 1992 to the year 2002. And Nyanja and Raila Odinga are neighbors at the estate in Kalen. So I got an opportunity to listen to the leader of official opposition at a personal level. And there was a time I heard him, and that should be about 2006. He said there is no bad publicity. Whether good or bad, it depends on how you spin it. The sooner my government realizes that Raila thrives in being a subject, the sooner they will drop him a subject. Let me tell you, the moment you ignore Raila Odinga, you finish him. Let's not give him the unnecessary attention he doesn't require.
Ninja says Raila akona team too kubwa. You can't ignore him. Let's allow you to come in. And Nodin, yes.
You see, Raila is like, Raila in crisis is like a fish in water. And that's what this government doesn't understand. You keep attacking him. The only thing you're doing, remember the first time after the elections, I joined you on set. I told you, it will take time, but he'll reinvent himself. And they're helping him doing that. Because remember when he was the Azimio candidate, the government of today called him the president's puppet, a project, and everything. In his entire career as a politician, he has always been seen as the hope of the masses. The current president took that as a chief hustler in Co, all right? So he was seen to propel the agenda of the common folk. He took that away from Raila. So Raila was seen as a government project or government stooge as they were portraying him in the campaigns. Now, you're taking him back, or rather you're giving him that social contract again with the same people you took. Because if you look at the government, the way it runs itself, there are blunders that are being made day in, day out. I gave you one of this caste issue. That is an issue. In as much as most in government who talk about it, believe you me, it is a problem. Because when you look at it, you go seek public participation for 23 positions, and then go and nominate 50. And out of the 50, 3/4 are political rejects. And then remember, you're talking about an ailing economy. And you're being told between now and 5 years, those offices alone, forget the PS and CS, those offices alone will consume 5 billion shillings. All right? These are the same people you're telling, I'm here because of Mama Mboga, Boda Boda. Unless Kidero became a Boda Boda rider and Ketu Ruguru and Mamboga, you're lying to the people at the end of the day.
Are you going to bring the CAS conversation?
Because we have to have it at the end of the day. Yeah. Because you see, these are the things that Kenyans they'll boil in them for a while. When you look at protests, for example, across the world, and that is people have to understand this. Raila Odinga is there today. There's a day he won't be there. Julius Malema was not there when this thing started because he didn't start the struggle. There are those who started, the likes of Kinabiko, and they're not there today. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you'll have to realize that these things matter to the people. It will get to a point where the blinds will fall because right now the blinds are still up. People are not seeing. They're still thinking courtesy of UDA, Azimio. The day the blinds fall, those who support the same government, and the government fails to achieve the plan, and I told you, the achievement of that plan will matter with the appointments he makes to the cabinet. Right. And the appointments he made are shambolic. Okay. So you expect to achieve the plan without a manifesto. With those appointments, we wait to see. So at the end of the day, if they fail, they cannot come back and tell people, we failed because Raila was demonstrating. Demonstration and your work are two different things. Because at the end of the day, you see, it's that, what I was calling a boogeyman syndrome. The reason why I'm saying, you see this thing about Uhuru this, Uhuru that. Remember, if that government failed, you failed with it because you were high-ranking officials then. And you're
part of the presidency.
And you're high-ranking officials now.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, the earlier you decide to make Uhuru a distant memory. In as much as, yes, he yielded power, yes, he has money and it all, the more you keep talking about someone, the more he remains relevant. So you will come to a microphone every other day, Uhuru this, Uhuru that. The day he shows up, you remember, that's the mistake Trump made his entire tenure. Obama this, Obama that. Obama just came and dealt with him at the end of the day. So you have to make sure the only way to silence Raila and the opposition is work. Achieve your manifesto. Because if you don't, all he needs to do is pick that manifesto after 5 years, call for a rally, read that manifesto, ABCD mukonayo, apana, EFGH apana, and then ask the people, so, hii serikali ilikuwa gani? At the end of the day, who loses? You lose, not him.
All right. Fashion Nova Support says this is not, there's John Jerry who says Ruto is here to stay. Fashion Nova reminds them and say that this is not who is the president. It's about our very own economy. And the Kakia Christopher says Kenya is greater than any leader. Peace is needed. A leader must forgo everything in the peace or in the name of peace for the people of Kenya. Immense feedback right here. We'll be looking at that. But allow us to briefly cross to Kisii County and see what the ground is like. Alfayo Kombo, our very own correspondent, is on standby. Alfayo, if you can hear me.
Okay, thank you very much, Linda. Leila, I can get you very well from these grounds of Kisii ground. If you may allow me to speak in Swahili, ndakuwa nakwambia kwamba katika eneo hili ambapo nipo sasa hivi katikati ya mji wa Kisii, ambapo unaweza kuona nyuma yangu upande wangu askari wapo tayari katika eneo hili ili kuweka usalama. Ukiangalia upande wangu wa nyuma ni kwamba askari wapo hapa, na katika mji mzima wa Kisii leo askari wameweza kutundikwa katika maeneo yote, huku kuhakikisha kwamba biashara zipo salama na watu wanafanya biashara zao vyema kabisa. Nitakuwa nawakaribisha wakazi katika eneo hili ili waweze kutueleza hisia zao ni zipi na wanahisi aje siku ya leo. Pengine usonge hapo karibu, utueleze siku ya leo unahisi aje, ni kipi ambacho unatarajia ikiwa hii ndio siku ile ambayo kinara wa Azimio alikuwa amesema watakuwa wanaandaa maandamano. Pengine waanze kwa jina lako na utueleze hisia zako ni zipi.
Kwa majina naitwa Vincent Nyariki, mkaaji wa Kisii, tena ni mhudumu wa bodaboda katika mji wetu wa Kisii. Siku ya leo kulingana na vile kiongozi wa Azimio Raila Amolo Odinga aliagiza kuwa kutakuwa ni siku ya maandamano. Kulingana na mimi nasema kuwa tukiangalia Wakenya tumekuwa nyuma kwa muda mwingi sana. Kwa hivyo kulingana na mimi nilikuwa nasema ama nilikuwa naomba Wakenya wenzangu kuwa tujitokeze kwa wingi tufanye kazi. Maana hii maandamano tukianza kufanya maandamano siku ya leo tunarudi nyuma kama Wakenya. Maandamano kuna kazi zinasimama, vitu za watu zinaharibiwa. Hasa tukienda kwa majirani zetu hapa Migori, umeona wameanza kulima mabarabara. Barabara unajua inasaidia watu kupita, lakini wao tayari washaanza kuharibu. Kwa hivyo mimi naomba wenzangu, Wakisii wenzangu, kwa jumla watu wote tunamo hizi Kisii County tujitokeze kwa wingi tufanye kazi. Maana usipofanya kazi jioni utapata unga utanapeleka kwa nyumba. Ya pili tena niseme rais wetu, Rais Ruto tunayompenda, alipochukua awamu yake ya kuingia kwa ofisi alipata hakuna kitu kwa ofisi. Wacha tumpe muda afanye kazi, maisha itakuwa vyema. Vile tunaona ameanza kufanya kuna mikakati anapanga ili aone kama ama Kenya itakuwa mzuri. Maana sasa hivi tunaposema sio Kenya peke yake kuna shida, kuna maisha yamekuwa magumu. Ukienda ulimwengu mzima maisha ni magumu. Kwa hivyo mimi naomba wenzangu tujitokeze tufanye kazi, wahudumu wa bodaboda muendeze pikipiki ili jioni mpate unga mpeleke kwa nyumba.
Naam, asante sana. Nitakuwa vile vile namkaribisha mkazi mwingine hapa. Leo tueleze hisia zako pia vipi, ni zipi siku ya leo na unatarajia nini siku ya leo?
Kwa majina naitwa Peterson Marita, jina lingine wananiita Ramtai Sare. Kinara wetu wa Azimio katika serikali ya upinzani. Maandamano yake sisi hapa tushahamka mapema, tunaanza kazi mapema, na naimisha wanabodaboda wenzangu, kaunti yetu ya Kisii hatujawahi kuwa na maandamano ama tukue na hasira zozote na mtu. Tunahitaji kabila zote waingie humu wafanye kazi. Kama ni mambo ya maisha imekaa ngumu, viongozi wapo, wakae pamoja, waelewane, wasuluhishe maneno, si kuandamana. Sisi hapa tuko nyumbani, tuko tayari kufanya kazi. Tunataka wafanya biashara wote waingie mjini tufanye biashara, na tunaomba sana wanabodaboda wenzetu musingilie mambo ya kuingia maandamano. Tufanye kazi jinsi tunavyofanya kawaida, tungoje viongozi wafanye mambo yao, washirikane pamoja, ndio sisi tuendelee mbele. Tukiandamana tuwezi leta Kenya yetu mbele. Tunaomba sana kiongozi Raila Amolo Odinga achukue mosu wakae na president wetu Ruto, waelewane. Kenya ni moja, Kenya ni yetu. So naomba wananchi wote mahali popote walipo wakae, tufanye kazi kawaida. Kisii yetu iko wazi kabisa, na Kisii hapa mtaona mtu akiandamana. Hata kama askari wetu wangeletwa, sisi tuko tayari kukataa maandamano. Hatutaki kuona maandamano katika kaunti yetu. Tufanye kazi polepole, ndio viongozi washirikane pamoja, walete kitu moja ile tunayofanyia kazi. Asante sana.
Naam, asante sana Linda Lela. Kama ulivyoweza kusikia, hizo ni hisia tu za wakazi kutoka eneo hili. Tutakuwa namkaribisha mkazi wa mwisho atueleze hisia zake ni zipi siku ya leo.
Kwa majina naitwa Dennis Okali, mimi ni mkaaji wa Kisii. Pia mimi ni asela. Kwanza mimi ni kitu cha kwanza ningesema mzee kuandamana haina shida. Lakini hoja zile ambazo anaandamana nazo ndio ataeka vizuri. Kwanza anapinga ya kwamba uchaguzi wa mwaka uliopita haikuenda vizuri. Aliweza kuenda mpaka mahakama kuu, akaweza kusalimisha suluhu lake huko, na baada ya kesi kuendelea mahakama ikasema ya kwamba ukweli aliye rais mteule Dr. Samuel William Ruto ndiye aliyekuwa mshindi. Kisha baadaye akaanza kungana kwa kufuata ya kwamba Kenya ekonomi yake imekuwa mbaya. Tumeona ya kwamba huyu mzee amekuwa katika serikali iliyopita, na wakati alikuwa katika serikali iliyopita walipopatia William Samuel Ruto mkono, walimwacha bila pesa, wakamwacha kila kitu. Kisha baadaye kiangazi ikafuata, na amekuwa katika uongozi achamaliza muda hata mwaka mmoja. Yeye atatoa wapi aweze kuleta economy? Sasa hii ndiye anataka kusettle, aweze kufanya nini? Aweze kuleta economy yetu ya Kenya iweze kuwa nzuri. Mimi kitu ningesema na hii, wafanye maandamano ya amani. Lakini kama wamepanga kuenda kuandamana ili kuwaza kusumbua wanabiashara ili waweze kuleta tena economy yetu iweze kurudi chini zaidi, hiyo kama mimi mkaaji wa Kisii nimekataa. Kisha baadaye kama akona shida anatakiwa kutafuta njia muafaka ya kuongea na serikali. Ile maneno ya kupanga kuenda Ikuru penye president wetu anakaa, tunakataa. Na sisi kama wa Kisii, sisi ni watu tunapenda amani, na sisi ni watu tunapenda kazi. Hatutaki mambo ya furugu, hatutaki mambo ya kuandamana. Sisi tunataka tuchape kazi ili tuinue, tushirikiane na president wetu, tuinue economy yetu ya Kenya.
Naam, asante sana. Pengine nikupe historia kidogo ya kwa nini katika eneo hili ambapo ukiangalia hapa nyuma katika tundiko hili ambapo naona askari wameweza kufika hapa, ndio mahali ambapo katika mji wa Kisii, hasa wakati kuna mikutano ya kisiasa au mikutano yoyote ile mikubwa hufanyiwa katika eneo hili. Kwa hivyo askari walikuwa na namna kwamba pengine waandamanaji wataweza kufika katika eneo hili, na ukiangalia katika eneo hili maduka ambayo yapo hapa karibu, mengi yao kufikia wakati huu bado hayajafunguliwa kama kawaida ya wafanyabiashara eneo hili huwa wanafungua biashara zao. Hivyo pengine wako na hofu ya kwamba pengine maandamano yatakuwa yanafika hapa, lakini tutakuwa tunafuatilia, ni mambo ambayo tutakuwa tunafuatilia kwa kina ili tuweze kukutaarifu mida ya baadaye, kama mida ya saa 5, vile vile mida ya saa 6, saa 7 na vile vile saa 10. Ni hayo tu kwa sasa. Nitakuwa narejesha usukani kwako Linda Alela hapo studioni Nairobi.
Well, Asante Sana, Alfayo Kombo, all the way from Kisii County. We'll be getting to hear from you later on in the broadcast. Views of some of the Kenyans that are following up on the events today, and we are here to make sure that we listen to every voice from every corner. And before I loop in my guests again, allow us to go to the CBD, that is in Odion. Our reporter Stanley Nyaringita on standby as well to keep us up to tabs as to what the city looks like. Stanley, this is the place that every other Kenyan is watching, sitting at, Nairobi County, or right inside Nairobi County, certainly where the mass demonstration process is supposed to take center stage. What would you tell us this morning?
Basically, this is Moi Avenue. Behind me is Odion, as you definitely know. Is on my left side is Chebet will show you, my camera person. The security right here is beefed up, just as the situation here is. And right here at the Central Business District, as requested by the Azimio leader, Raila Odinga, and his stalwarts, that this particular place is where they will meet, right here in the middle of the city in Central Business District, so that they can actually march all the way to State House. So basically, the situation here right now, even as the people that I have asked, is on a typical Monday, this place is usually crowded. It's always a whole beehive of activity. As you can see, the whole traffic right about here, the Moi Avenue leading all the way to Odion. It's always, snarled up and all that. Traffic is always, snarled up right about here. But then, as you can see, the traffic isn't as tight as it is. Not many people on the roads about this particular place. From here, we'll be going all the way to Archives, where I am being told that there is, many people, and the police will be, talking to a number of people right here. You can see the whole business people, and a number of businesses haven't really been opened about this particular place. On my left side, some businesses have been opened. And I've also been told that businesses will again be opened a little bit later on. But then again, as I had told you, Linda, businesses are usually opened around, it's around 8:03 a.m. So basically, businesses should be opened at this time. We'll be talking to a few people later on to just know if actually they're going to open businesses. As you can see on my left side, the security has been beefed up this particular place, and this is just to show you a tip of the iceberg that security is actually beefed up to ensure that security situation will be tight in this particular place. And remember, Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki said that the security will be actually beefed up, and also Nairobi Police Commander Adamson Bungei said that anyone who will try to, cause chaos and disrupt any businesses will be arrested. So the security right here is beefed up. Not a lot of people actually on the roads. That is the situation right about here on Moi Avenue, Linda Lela.
All right, thank you, Stanley Nyaringita, for the updates down there. I know we'll be having lots of these updates, and I hope that you understand us as well. We open the lines for you to speak to us this morning. Remember, the hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Leila TV47KE across all our social media platforms. The numbers to call will be running down on your screen. You can as well call us live and contribute to the conversation that we hear. Of course, with me in studio, the gentlemen that are helping me decipher on this very, very important matter. Before we expound it further, we take a quick short break and then we come back on that very note.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Platinums.
In the country and the region. Our members of faculty are keen to deliver market-driven programs in science and humanities with a keen focus on linkages with relevant organizations. Join us today and train with the best to become the best. Mount Kenya University, unlocking infinite possibilities.
On the next episode of The Realtor.
Land buying in Kenya and also selling has remained a riddle that no one has been able to interpret it. And you know what? You've been asking yourself what is happening with the government, the stakeholders, and even the private sector when it comes to bringing a solution.
People or private investors have overpassed the government capacity. The government doesn't really have policies to enlighten people on matters with that.
On this Tuesday, we shall be discussing things that can be put to consideration just to make sure that you, as a stakeholder by default, you are secured. It will be on this Tuesday at 6:30 p.m.
TV47, the home of untold stories.
International Development Consultant Dr. Ken Kambona is with us this morning, governance expert Peter Moshendu, as well as Wakili Noreen Kagai. And I mean, those are some of the pictures as to what is playing across the country. We'll be getting more updates from the different parts. And like I said, it will be good to hear from you as well. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Leila TV47KE. The numbers to call running down on your screen, 22047 is the SMS short code. We'll be looking at some of these comments that you send us before we close it. I will ask this question again just to get us to where it is that we had left it. Let me ask you, because I had already asked Daktari this. Peter Moshendu, you are adamant that there are no possibilities where we would have this picketing and demonstrations conducted in a peaceful manner. Is it not disturbing for us to argue that? And I think I have read some of these messages, and I mean, going across the social media platforms, it's disturbing to see Kenyans saying that, there's really nothing much that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga is going to do. We're just going to witness a bit of stampede and a bit of, shootings here and there. 2 people, 3 people lose their lives, some are hurt, and that's it. We cannot get comfortable in such a space, don't you think? And why do we have this right enshrined in the Constitution if we know that eventually the police will not be able to take care of us? Instead, they will be agitated and irritated to a level where they will now, start being tough on the masses or the people who are protesting.
Well, I've told you, when the reasons are not genuine, then the demonstrations will not be based on the actual terrains under which they have said they are holding it. They have said they want to hold a peaceful demonstration, but the reasons under which they are holding the peaceful demonstrations are not honest, and therefore there cannot be as peaceful as you want them to do, because then again, we have said it clearly that in anarchy, confusion, and chaos, Raila Odinga thrives. And therefore, in the absence of those things, it will not be seen as if he has made it.
Yeah.
And therefore, you saw, as Noldin said in Kisumu, people begging for tear gas, because they believe for any maandamano to be very successful, there has to be tear gas. It is a light that is given in the Constitution, and it is something that can actually be used to change a country's course, if used properly and on genuine reason. Today, you have seen almost 2 million people on the road in South Africa. You have not had altercations with the police in that kind of a magnitude of people.
Yeah.
I told you because the reasons that are making them go to the road are very personal to them. They have a personal touch on it, and they know the bigger picture is to achieve housing in South Africa. It is to achieve equality in terms of RAD distribution. It is to achieve low cost of electricity. Those are the end game that the South African people are looking for. But here in Kenya, what is making Raila, I told you the first thing that will tell us that maandamano cannot be peaceful, Raila has refused to recognize that the current president is democratically and constitutionally elected as is in power. That means they are going to the street in utmost disrespect of the fact that they do not recognize the government of the day. That in itself is a recipe for altercations in the streets. So therefore, I think this is a light that we would use as Kenyans who are being affected by the current cost of living. Because I told you, I refuse to bury my head and say that the cost of living in the country is in a place where Kenyans want it to be. It is not. It is something that must be addressed. We are talking about the injustice, historical RAD injustices in this republic. It is there. We cannot bury our head to the fact that the Dongo report has never been discussed and it has never been implemented to look at the historical RAD injustices in this republic, Linda. It is true. Our electricity cost is flaring and it is going up. These are pertinent issues that as a country we must discuss and find a way on how to deal with them. And that is a challenge to the government.
Yeah.
It is also on the right of Kenyans, if they feel the government is slow on them, they can go to the street, because this is a provision of the Constitution. But unfortunately, and I say this without fear of contradiction, we have allowed politicians to dictate the space under which we do maandamano. They have allowed the politicians to dictate the space under which we picket. And therefore, the genuineness and the honestness of the reasons why people go on the street lacks therein, and puts this maandamano into just another political activity like the ones that have gone in the past. Because I'm telling you, if today the police allow themselves to be provoked by those who are picketing, then we are inviting a new political coalition in the near future. That is what our maandamano turns out to be. They always, what do you call it? It is like the metaphor.
It breeds new leaders.
It breeds new leaders. It is like a process of metamorphosis. By the time we are hitting the next 3 months, this thing will not be about the original reasons why we went to the street. And this is the unfortunate state of our politics, that we must come back, as Daktari has said, devoid picketing and demonstration from the political narratives of the day, and let it be about real issues. Because if people are going to the street on real issues, because there are issues affecting this republic, we will not deny that there are issues, as I've told you, the cost of living. If those are the driving issues that takes people to the street, then even the government would have a very hard time dealing with the people who are coming out in honesty of the very reasons they are coming. But right now, it's a political conmanship that is happening in the name of demonstration and picket.
And you know, therein, Dr. lies the danger of falling to anarchy. And, you know, in your capacity as a consultant at the level of IGAD, you have witnessed how countries have gone down, and the struggles of building them up is clear to us, to all of us, whether we've been following on the events or not. Democratic Republic of Congo is not in the best of shape. South Sudan, not in the best of shape. Somalia, not in the best of shape. It's not all good at the level of Ethiopia, in as much as it houses the African Union. And we ask ourselves, just what makes us imagine that we are immune to the danger that lies ahead? How best can we handle our political situation, the difficulties that we are witnessing economically and, you know, health-wise and all that, you know, with decorum, to a point where we will just be talking about anarchy as to something that is happening in other spaces and not in the country.
If I may paraphrase your question, and that's a very good question, is how do we fix all this?
Yeah.
How do we fix all this? I think from where I sit, that is at the IGAD headquarters, I can almost scope in on like 8 countries plus others which are related to them. Somalia, as you've said, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Uganda, South Sudan, Sudan, Kenya, and yeah, maybe one coming very soon. Now, one thing you learn from that is that as a country, let's be frank, we are very lucky to have venting points. None of these countries have a system where you can exhale, you know, if I may use that term.
Yeah.
And for that to happen, you know what happened in Sudan. Military changeover, and then another military changeover. So, because the people reach a point where they cannot bear it anymore. So the same in South Sudan, the war between the two protagonists have again started. Eritrea, we know. So as Kenyans, let's thank God that we can picket and vent out.
Okay.
Now it is what my friends are saying that we need to now check it. Can we then have a system that does that in a more structured way, cultured, and with an outcome in mind? And this is some of my suggestions are, instead of purely leaving these things to political parties and political affiliations, one of the best things to do is to strengthen COTU, the Central Organization for Trade Union. I'm just using COTU as an example, so that COTU cuts across the board. It doesn't matter whether you're a Kisii man like the one we Sisi wa Kisii. It will be Sisi walimu, Sisi, you know, wana matatu, Sisi wana boda boda. This is what we say. Right now we are talking in terms of Sisi Wakikuyu, Sisi Wajaluo. The businesses in Nairobi are supposed to be spoiled for the Wakikuyus and not the Turkanas. I guess the Turkana businessmen in Nairobi. So that's what I would like to propose, so that we don't get, we are the largest economy in the region, where the region is both East and Central Africa. And possibly 6th, we keep on oscillating 6th or 8th or 4th in the continent.
Yeah.
We cannot be wished away. We cannot wish what is happening away. You can be sure we are also the country with the largest population of Westerners here, that is the Western world, plus their interest, the largest. That one, we beat even South Africa, we beat Nigeria and everybody. So everybody is on us. And if we picket in the manner that is being proposed, in a manner which is structured, then we'll now go to the next level. So we've picketed, We've presented our memo to the president. That memo is supposed to be acted on within a certain time. You know, like say, President, we are giving you 3 months.
Yeah.
Or give us your timeline. So he gives you the timeline, or you agree on a timeline, and said the price of, you said this during the campaign, we know you are soliciting for votes, so some were overshot, you know, the figures were too much. But now we are giving you that time with the current scenario. The rains are here. We know it takes 6 months for the harvest to come, so the food security could be sorted out in this. So that way, we are not just picketing without, you know, like they say, whatever, without a cause. We have a cause and a structured way to go ahead. On IEBC, Mr. President, there's nothing wrong in listening to what I'm saying. Right now, it has been turned political. Yeah. But if the president also stepped down a little bit and said, okay, Bwana Azimio team, the Azimio team, I want to use that more than the personality. What is your proposal? Can we have it on the table? Things are still...
Aren't the laws so clear on this? And should we again have, you know, negotiations on basis where the law is clear?
And that's the point actually that we are bringing. If the ego factor comes in, so you can answer it using the law very clearly. You've mentioned this point, the law says this. You've mentioned this point, the law says this. You've mentioned this point. And I know the press has been picking it up here and there. You people do a good job in doing that. But they want the person to be answered. You know, like now like they once said, we don't read these things. When Baba has read it, we are done. So when you answer Baba, then people will know
that you've answered
this. Now you've answered them. But, you know,
a game of ego, and we have witnessed that in South Sudan. Allow me to loop in Nordin on this one. Salva Kiir, Riek Machar. It's been ego versus ego. You know, pretense that we are willing to sit down and talk for purposes of posterity, but in real sense, we don't get to see this. And I mean, as late as last week, I was reading a story about South Sudan. It's not getting better. It's not getting better. How can we even imagine that it's fine? This one we're going to rule out. The Right Honorable Raila Odinga we're going to rule out. Are we not facing anarchy? And how do we get ourselves out of it? Clearly, because if it's about accommodating those ones, that are supporters or have enjoyed lots of support from the people, and going against the law. I mean, is it really how we're supposed to do it?
You see, the thing is, if I quote Raila, he says, the president sees them as children. They have tried to engage him, but he hasn't responded for the past 2 weeks. And he's answering them via the media. So for them, they feel like he has a lot of contempt towards them. And that takes us back to South Sudan, where we see Salva Kiir ended up firing some ministers in the interior and defense. So you see, in politics, there's always going to be ego. Some will be bruised, others will actually try to flex their muscles. That's why the former president used to tell us, I am in charge of this government. That was a sign to say that it was his government. And so there are those who feel that they have nothing to discuss with Raila Odinga. And there are those who are close to the president who have said that they cannot, they've quoted the infamous quote that the government will not negotiate with terrorists, which is sad, because at the end of the day, Kenya is for all of us, in as much as some think this is a company and they are shareholders. So at the end of the day, I believe we have to talk. And that is why I was dumbfounded when I saw people attacking Sakaja. He didn't talk about a handshake. He said leaders have to raise the occasion and realize that in as much as you have personal interest you're pursuing, there is a common interest that is of the people that really matters. Because if there is no Kenya today, what will the president call, who will be a president for if there's no Kenya today? You can't be a president at the end of the day. So I believe we need to raise the occasion and realize that, and quote Saitoti where he said there's a time and place where the nation comes before you as a person. And that is why I believe those who are close to the president, at times your advisors are enemies in disguise because they give you the wrong advice. You don't need hard-headed people or those who they call hardliners sometimes. And those who are quote-unquote sycophants, most of the time don't give you the sound advice you need. You see, as a president, you're the father of the nation. By that, it means you put the nation before you. So if you do that, we are able to solve most of these issues. And that is why, for me, I believe, if we concentrate more on fulfilling the manifesto that he had, which is a good manifesto, I went through it, you will end up stopping all this that is happening right now. Because now, everywhere it's being called civil disobedience. currently, I differ with that, because at the end of the day, civil disobedience is not the problem. Our problem is the civil obedience, where we have abided by the leaders, which has led to many being killed, petty thieves in jail, and then others, those who are mega thieves, are always out here running for office at the end of the day. That is why I believe the protests are good at the end of the day. The only problem is that we have stigmatized our protests to mean anarchy, chaos, and violence. Because the moment Article 37 disappears, we go back to 1993, where even having Sabasaba was an issue. You can't articulate issues, you can't speak, so you have nowhere to vent. And that is where most African countries are. And so they're actually trying to come out of that space. We are lucky that we have a constitution that actually took care of that. The drafters actually saw what we went through back then. But I believe in as much as we have a license to demonstrate, to picket, to petition, then we should do it in a peaceful manner and unarmed, as the constitution says. So at the end of the day, let's give everyone a right to actually exercise their rights, so that we don't come to a place where we've divided the nation. Because if you look at some tweets from those who are in the opposition, some are actually talking about secession. That is not the conversation we want to have as a country. We can't have Kenya A and Kenya B. And it comes courtesy of unfortunate comments from high-ranking officials in this government, like the leader of majority in the Senate, who tells us that Kenya is known outside because of a certain community. So it's their time to eat. That is utter garbage. Because at the end of the day, you cannot then mean that this country, only a certain few will eat. That takes us back to the issue of the shareholders. So if that is the case, then those people should pay taxes. You get me? So as a leader, you should be very careful of what comes out of your mouth. You can either ban a country or build a country. So I believe moving forward, we need to be careful of how we address our issues and how we move as a nation. But for those who are attending the demonstration, I'm seeing that there's an issue already in Kibra, where tear gas have been lobbed to the protesters who wanted to march to the CBD. Let them go to the CBD. This issue of trying to barricade them from going to the CBD won't help anything, because now you will engage them in running battles that now amplifies the situation. As of today, 1 a.m., South Africa, students were marching. The police decided to be disingenuous and fired at them. That is what has brought about what we are seeing as of right now. Because you didn't reason and you ended up not using your brain, and now you've made the entire issue bigger than life. So I believe for those who are going for the demonstrations, eat well, take a dump before you leave, wear a sweater, because the cells are quite cold. You need to have a bottle of water because of the tear gas. And at the end of the day,
you should have seen some.
Do not carry any valuables.
Wamevaa tayari, wanasema wako ready.
I've seen even the PK Selassie is ready. He said today is not a member of parliament. So I believe let them go, let them walk, even if it's the whole day. Let them walk. Just let it be peaceful. Because at the end of the day, if you end up now having an issue where we have tear gas, we're not having issues of running battles, we, the Kenyans, are the ones who are going to suffer at the end of the day.
You know, Selassie would tell you perhaps that he has felt the pinch of the high cost of living. That one would make sense.
Yes.
Someone says,
Yes.
This would have been a great cause if it was during Raila Odinga's youthful years, so that he and the nation can thrive. Today, the old Raila wants to go down with all the achievements, so that no one takes credit of the struggle in his old age. We come back to this question. Can we overlook the hand of external forces on this matter?
Well, you know, Kenya is a growing democracy. We depend a lot on international development partners to fund most of our programs. And therefore, our relationship with our external friends is very important. And either for government or against government, I still believe there are elements that are out there that may be involved in such demos. I remember I was telling you about a case on CDF, one that was brought about against the CDF Act of, was it 2003? Yeah. The 2003. It was funded by an NGO from outside this country. And the last few months, where the funds were not available. I know you must have seen what the parents were experiencing in our villages. There has to be a law that governs that fund, yes. But the results of that ruling has affected every single person in the corner of this republic. So you cannot rule away the international forces because everybody has his own interest. Today, you have seen Russia and America fighting for the rights to control the Dark Sea. You have seen the other day the UK, Australia, American axis doing the submarines so that they can protect Australian coast because of the interest of China. So these issues have external interest, either through funding or through support, because look at Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga has quite a number of friends we know in the African region. William Ruto is the president. He represents the interest of the country. And therefore, you will find these people either supporting maandamano or talking against it, because today, if you ask the African installations that are based here in Nairobi, they wouldn't want maandamano because it will derail the programs that they have. There are NGOs and civil societies that are being funded from outside that are supporting this. Right today, the countries like Canada, some countries in Scandinavians have been working to support the Kenyans in training them on their rights, the right way to picket and all those things. They are not really supporting sabotage on government, but they are involved in training people on their rights and everything. So in all these things, you will find international hands everywhere. Some may come to the table with clean hands, others will come with dirty hands to the table. So you cannot rule away the international involvement on this, because I will also tell you, one of the things Raila is counting on, other than the national for the state here in the Republic, he's counting on the international media to actually broadcast this outside there. And that is the way he's looking to sell perception that all is not well in the Republic. And that is how you get the international community involved in the affairs of a nation. That's why I said it is in the interest of the government of the day to ignore Raila. Because I told you, if you talk about Raila and you put him on the table, has he not already invited United Nations and all the sort of bodies? Because Raila, let me tell you, today, we are here with you, Rinda. We don't live in Djibouti. We don't live in Southern Sudan. We don't live in Congo. But we have a picture in our mind based on what the media and the people who are out there are feeding us. And that is what Raila Odinga is counting on today, that the international media will feed the international community of an image of a country that is not governable, a country that is in chaos, a country that needs intervention by international community. And that is what we have created, an avenue for Raila Odinga to do it.
But at this rate, don't you think we really need intervention?
I don't think we have reached there. And that's why I said, even the president yesterday said he is open to talks. When he was at Kapsabet, he said he's open to talk that are constitutionally and legally guided, because he also understands it is the interest of the Republic that we enhance peace. And I mean not just peace in the name, tranquility that is in this city, that, Linda, you can move from wherever you stay to come to studio, go to Nairobi CBD, do your business, go to industrial area and get back home. That tranquility is very important to every single Kenyan. So therefore, this is what I think. We have not reached a place where we need international help. We just need to summon that patriotism as Kenyans and sit and look, guys, this is our country. Whether you supported Raila Odinga or William Ruto, we are living in this republic. And if I am doing business, Kikuyus, where I come from, they are the biggest sellers of expensive phones in town. Luos from Kisumu, they are the biggest customers. They are the ones who are going with Zeddy votes and what have you, let me tell you, it is in your interest as someone from out in Kenya to ensure that there exists a coexisting peace between you and your Luo brother, because if you bring that 200,000 shillings worth of a phone in your shop, he is the right customer to come and buy it. So this has nothing to do with William Ruto. It has nothing to do with the Honorable Right Raila Odinga or any other politician that supports the two. It is about this republic. And the sooner the Kenyan people will get fed up by the notions and ideas driven by politicians. Because as I've told you, I may want to be part of this protest.
As we got to chase, yeah?
I may want to be a part of this protest today. But when I remember it is a politician and his agenda who has organized it, I choose not, you lose the point of coming to that protest.
Allow us to loop in Daktari. And Daktari, is the president bowing to pressure, and will Rigiji allow for him to bow into this pressure? Because when he says, I am willing to speak, and Rigiji on the other hand says, I will not allow for that to happen. Yeah. And we all can remember very well the March 9 handshake and how it got the Jubilee government, in a proper split. What are we looking to say?
Yeah, good question. And this is how I want to handle it. Even the handshake was as a result of international intervention.
Intervention, okay.
It was purely a USAID brokered process. I understand it. I know how that went. Now, let's look at the bigger picture and then come to your question. Now, this country, I said it earlier, is home to probably the largest Western interest in the continent. And I'll just take a few of the things. If America has to fight Al-Shabaab, there is no better place to to get things done, organized, than in Kenya. So the biggest American military base in Africa, and probably the third world, is in Djibouti. If there are Americans sick there, the place they would come to get medical treatment, they are always flown to Nairobi. For one, their facilities are there. For number two, the language they speak is what we speak. Mostly, language is a barrier, especially when medical issues are there. Thirdly, trade with Kenya is very important to the international community. The last one is the development partners. All development partners that operate in this region are domiciled in this country. They're domesticated here. So you may not see their hand out there, but I can tell you this situation is being monitored very closely by those international partners, our friends, the external friends that we have. China being one of them, the US being one of them, and of course our traditional ally or the Britain and then France and the rest. So why? The coffee and tea we produce, the most important market is UK. If this country goes to the dogs, then even their citizens are affected. Coffee the same, and other things, the flowers. Yeah. That's so we are a very important country to the West, and by now they have started. You don't think when the Azimio leader says that there's pressure for him to withdraw. Don't just read it from face value. It goes deeper. It's not just pressure from the church. Okay. It's not. There are some people who can put pressure and you listen. The church may not act. They can only pray. Yeah. The international community can act. They have some things that we may not know, but that will make people listen, just like they did during the handshake. Uhuru did that, and of course, Kibaki also had to do that. I don't think he would have cared. I mean, people are dying. Well, not that he wouldn't have cared, but he would have probably soldiered on. But the international community, because of the importance of Kenyans and of Kenya, and Mkapa said it, that sasa Kenya ikienda tutabaki na nini? You know, it was a very clear statement that that we are very critical. So for now, you can be sure they have been looking at the end game. What will Raila do, what will Azimio do after this? If there is a possibility of anarchy, that they will have to intervene now in a more aggressive way. And they have done all the SWOT analysis. What are the possibilities if it goes this way? And you have done so too, I guess, in your mind. So yes, it's important that they come in because of their interest, much as this is our country, and Peter has just said it, behoves us to create those linkages. The best mechanics you can find could be from Siaya.
Yeah.
They are in Nairobi.
In Nairobi.
And
if you want your car aligned and aligned well, you will get a mechanic from Kisumu, from Siaya.
They understand the machines.
I've been stuck with alignment person called John Otieno in Kikuyu for
the longest time.
Equally, before you get in, if you want to sell that furniture that you have made very nicely and you are watching it, looking at it and saying, this is good, this is a good job.
It has to be.
You have to sell it to Njuguna so that he can push it, he can sell it in his best way of selling, he has the language to sell.
But we are in constant campaign. That's the most unfortunate thing today.
Yes.
How do we thrive? Even if the two leaders are going to sit down and talk and make it brief so that we can cross over to Naivasha and then come back to you.
Linda, if you were a foreigner and you landed in Kenya today, you'd ask, munapiga kura lini?
Yeah.
Because you have a government that is strategizing for 2027, is talking about revamping its party. An SG that is talking about dissolving other parties into forming one huge, humongous party. You're talking about an opposition that has launched an MDD, an affiliate to them. Now, as Gachagua says, to bring energies. So the MDD is meant to bring energy, if I'm not wrong. So if you were to land in Kenya, you'd think that we are going for an election. Because the sad reality is that we win elections to plan for the next elections. What the government of the day doesn't realize, the next election, if God wills everybody gets there, will be won depending on how you perform.
Yeah.
If you achieve your manifesto, you are going to perform. It will be an easy ride. But if you start early campaigns in the names of Thanksgiving, what are you thanking me? And life is still hard. Life is actually getting worse. What are you thanking me for? There's no need for all those, Just work, avoid sideshows, and then we will be in a position where we don't have to be in a political scene where we have to answer and tomorrow have to wake up and do the same thing. Quick into these demonstrations. We have to realize that we are having an international demonstration. By that I mean north, east, west, and south, because it's Tunisia, Nigeria, Kenya, and SA. So far it is us and South Africa who have shown signs, waiting to see whether Nigeria will bring another SARS that they had. At the end of the day, the leaders in Africa have to realize one thing. The Arab uprising didn't start one day. Yeah. It was a culmination of a couple of years of anguish and frustration. To avoid that uprising coming to Africa, all you need to do is work. Because if you don't, a lot of them will be swept by an African uprising. Because it is not far-fetched. Yeah. It can happen. And it gets to a point where Africans say, enough is enough. Because the thing that ails Africa is bad leadership. Right. That is why you see we end up voting, life doesn't change. Because you have people who campaign on false promises, and when they get into office, because they don't actualize the promises, you end up frustrated. And a frustrated lot keeps it with them. But one day, it boils out.
Well, and we come back to you shortly. I will not allow President Ruto to have handshake with Raila Odinga. That is according to the DP. And anti-riot police outside Supreme Court and across the different parts of the country, as we can evidently receive some of these pictures. And Azimio politicians are accusing Ezra Chiloba and Communications Authority of Kenya of disabling the phone lines of their leaders. We call upon CA Kenya to up a step and be a regulator and not a partner in crime, especially especially Chiloba, as they would rightfully say, the phone lines of our leaders and team members are being unfairly and wrongfully disabled in attempts to sabotage the protest. Let's cross over to Naivasha in Nakuru County. Willie Dennis Jiru on standby to tell us what the mood is like down there. Willie, if you can hear me, good morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Linda. It's indeed a low-key scenes witnessed here of activities that, unlike any other day here in Naivasha, fundamentally what has been mostly affected is the school-going kids and pupils, where low-key number of school-going children have been registered around here within Naivasha town. But with me, I'm at the main terminus here that we have so many terminals here, one to Nakuru, one to Nyandarua, one to Nairobi. But at the terminals where we have vehicles ferrying passengers to Nairobi, hardly little or significantly just a slight of activities here. And with me, I'm joined by one driver who is going to be shedding light about the situation. Tueleze jina lako, uliamka saa ngapi, hali iko vipi? Kuna wasafiri na endapo wapo mmepandisha nauli ama iko namna gani?
Mimi kwa majina naitwa Onesmus Njai. Tulilauka mapema, lakini hali ya abiria iko chini, hakuna abiria wenye wana travel. Tumekaa hivi, abiria waendi. Sasa ndio ningeomba serikali wangeitana wachukue dialogue waweze kukaa chini, at least tuone kama life ita change, kwa sababu kwa saa hizi life iko chini sana. Tumeamka hata tumekaa hivi, hakuna abiria wa kutravel. Mimi nafanya na NNUS.
Ulirauka saa ngapi na umekuwa umepiga foleni hapa kusubiri wateja?
Nimeamka saa 12 ikielekea hapo. Nimeamka 5:40 hapo. Lakini hali ya abiria kulikuwa tu bado unapata ni mmoja, hamna ile hali tumezoea kubeba abiria.
Umepandisha nauli?
Nauli tu tumenyamaza kwa sababu nauli tu iko tu vile. Kwa tu vile.
Asante. Wacha tusikie kutoka kwa jamaa mwingine hapa. Tueleze jina lako alafu tueleze hali iko vipi.
James Nganga, Gathoga. Juu mimi nauma sana. Mimi saa 9.
Jitambulishe.
James Nganga, Gathoga. Niamka saa 9 hivi. Na donyo kwa serikali ya UDA ni wao wanafanya hii kazi. Juu mimi nisikia kama mtu ameongwa na gari, nakaa para karibu na Medhori Kabati. Kuna nisikia makelele usiku. Nikashindwa kwa kwenda aje. Kumbe ni watu wamefunga barabara. Nikaenda hapa, hata mimi mwenyewe nimeumia, unaona hadi mkono nimeumia. Nikaenda naambia hakuna haja kufunga barabara saa hizi. Hawa watu wako serikali ya UDA bado, lakini sitaji ni akina nani. Anishika hivi bado mashati hivi. Nikasikia niko mbaya sana. Tunataka amani.
Kwa sababu mkutano wa maandamano ulikuwa umeitishwa jijini.
Na hapa Naivasha hatutoki maandamano yoyote. Tuko poa, tuko fiti. Nataka tukufanya job. Mimi nafanya kazi kwa NSL pale. Sija character. Tuko fiti sisi. Lakini hawa tufanye mzuri.
Asante. Wacha tusikie kutoka kwa ndugu mwingine hapa. Nieleze jina lako, hali iko vipi? Maandamano yaliitishwa na kiongozi wa Azimio katika maeneo yote hapa nchini. Sijui una yapi ya kusema ukiwa Mkenya?
Kwa majina naitwa David Chege na mimi ndio chairman hapa Naivasha boda boda. Na kitu ya kwanza tunataka amani, kwa sababu nchi bila amani hamwezi fanya biashara yoyote. Na kitu kingine ya pili tungeomba Kenya iko na demokrasia ya kuwa ya kwamba kuna opposition na kuna serikali, na lazima watakuwa wananchi waelewane, kwa sababu ndio wapate kuwa haki yao inapatikana. Na kama vile jana kulikuwa na vile ambavyo Raila alikuwa amejipanga kufanya maandamano siku ya leo, tungeomba ya kwamba kuna vile serikali ya UDA ambapo ndio Raila na waface, kuna ambapo mbunge wetu ambaye ako hapa Jeni Kihara, tungemuomba ya kwamba azidi kuweka Naivasha amani, kwa sababu kuna vijana walikuja hapa jana na leo saa 10 usiku walikuwa hai wakifunga barabara, na tungependa kurudi 207 vile kulikuwa. So tungeomba Madam Jeni Kihara na serikali yake ya Naivasha wajaribu venye tunaweza kuwa na amani, kwa sababu at the end of the day Naivasha lazima tutakuwa na amani.
Pendekezo la kiongozi wa Azimio ilikuwa maandamano yenye amani, yalikuwa yaanze asubuhi, walikuwa bebe vitambaa vyeupe, mawe na kufunga barabara. Vinaingiliana vipi?
Sasa hapo ndio tunasema ya kwamba tungependa amani, kwa sababu wananchi wa kawaida ndio wanaumia. Kama sasa tuliahidiwa siku 100 zikiisha, unga itakuwa chini na mafuta itakuwa imeshuka. Lakini tunaona mwezi kienda tunapata mafuta inapanda siku baada nyingine, na tungeomba hasa watu wetu wa bodaboda washirikiane na ambapo hakutakuwa na amani. Tunataka amani ndio tuweze kulea watoto wetu.
Labda kabla sijaelekea kwa mtu mwingine na kuuliza swali la mwisho. Ikiwa maandamano haya ni ya mwananchi wa kawaida kuangalia hali ya maisha na gharama ya juu ya maisha, kiongozi wa Azimio alisikika jana akisema watu waandamane kuelekea Ikulu kuchukua uongozi ambao kulingana nao ulienda visivyo.
Okay, tungeomba kwa sababu Raila yeye mwenyewe ana wafuasi ambao wanatetea hapa ground na wanamsikia, tungeomba hata yeye mwenyewe akuwe na kwa mwelekezo wa amani ili ndio nchi iweze kukua, kwa sababu hata kama ni angekuwa amekalia ile kiti bado angependa kuwa na wananchi wenye anaongoza wakuwe na amani.
Asante, wacha tumsikie ndugu mwingine. Ndugu karibia, nieleze maoni yako kuhusiana na ilivyotangazwa kwamba kutakuwa na maandamano hii leo. Na hali iko vipi hapa mjini Naivasha na mnakusudia kufanya nini?
Kwa majina naitwa Martin Ndongo. Mimi ni mkaaji wa Naivasha kwa muda mrefu. Sasa mimi kuhusu hii maandamano, ningesema maandamano inastahili ya amani. Kwa sababu tukiangalia hii maandamano kama askari wenyewe wanastahili kupea security vitu za watu ili visiharibiwe. Second, maandamano yenyewe kama kiongozi wetu wa Azimio vile alisema inastahili vitambaa nyeupe. Kwa mwananchi wa kawaida ama kwa nchi yoyote, vitambaa nyeupe ni ya kuoneshana amani. Kwa hivyo sasa ni kuoneshana hii maandamano ni ya amani. Kitu ambao sisi wananchi ama mimi mwananchi inaniudhi. Kwani maandamano inastahili na inastahili maandamano ya amani. Kwa sababu maandamano yenyewe inatutetea sisi wananchi. Kwa sababu serikali baada ya kuchukua uongozi ilituahidi sisi kama kwenye kampeni kama wananchi, baada ya siku 100 itarudisha gharama ambayo ilikuwa na serikali ambayo ilistaafu, ilikuwa imepandisha gharama ya maisha, irudishe gharama ya maisha chini. Na baada ya kuchukua serikali, wao sisi tunaona wakiendelea kuajiri watu. Niambie sasa kama PS tuliona kitu yenye ilitushangaza katika nchi hii. PS wanaajiriwa PS 50. PS 50, CS 50 wao CS 50 ambao waliajiriwa wako na wafanyikazi wengine nyuma yao. Hiyo ni kurudisha gharama ya maisha chini ama ni kurudisha gharama ya maisha?
Asante, kabla tujamalizia acha tukasikia kutoka kwa jamaa mwingine hapa. Karibia chombo, tueleze jina lako, kuliitishwa maandamano hii leo. Sisi tuko wenye amani hapa mjini Naivasha. Sijui ikiwa maandamano yatasheheni mji huu ama itakuwa vipi?
Kwa majina yangu Kwa majina yangu naitwa Masai. Na mimi ni mfanyikazi wa Naivasha. Na katika Naivasha kuna amani. Na amani ndio inafanya sisi tuweze kufanya kazi. Hata maeneo mengine ningelipenda hata kama ni maandamano wapeleke huko bunge, waende walete misaada yao ya kusema hata kama hata kama maisha imekuwa juu, serikali ijue jinsi itakuja kutengeneza maisha ili ifae katika mwananchi wa kawaida. Haya mambo ya maandamano kulete katika sehemu za kazi, hiyo sioni inafaa, kwa sababu wao ukiangalia wako juu ya magari, lakini sisi wananchi wa kawaida ndio tunaambiwa tuende wale watu juu ya gari hawaumii. Sasa tuone maandamano hii kwa maana gani sisi tukiandamana?
Baadhi ya pendekezo na kiongozi wa Azimio ni kwamba hali hii imekuwa tangia uongozi wa awali wa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta. Haya ni mambo tu ambayo serikali ya sasa imeridhi, na inasadikika kwamba kiongozi wa Azimio alikuwa na kiwango fulani cha usemi katika serikali hiyo. Sijui unasema nini kuhusiana na hilo, na ni lipi unaloweza kumweleza Rais William Ruto kwa sasa?
Tukimalizia nikisema hali ya kusema ati unga iko juu. Hata ukiangalia dunia kote jua imekuwa kuna kiangazi mingi. Isipokuwa hata ukiangalia kama mahindi hakuna. Sikumtetea, mimi naongea vile ilivyo. Hata ukiangalia hakuna mahindi katika Naivasha. Hakuna mvua. Si ndio? Kile ambacho angefanya hii kupandisha kodi katika biashara zetu ndio angepunguza, lakini mambo ya kusema unga nini? Angalia mambo ya taxi. Apanda kuongeza mwananchi wa kawaida taxi, aanguze chini. Kama mambo ya unga hata serikali ya zamani ya Uhuru Kenyatta ilikuwa 215. Sasa hivi serikali ya saa hii iko 180. So tugoje serikali ifanye kazi.
Linda, thank you very much. That is part of sentiments from the locals here in Naivasha, where they are divided right in the middle about the high cost of living as at this moment. Some are for the demonstrations to as a word to the government that they have to ensure that things come down. But on the other side, some other faction of the group says that it is time we let the government take its position and make sure that things come down, trickle down little by little until we are at certain point where we can be able to have a stable economy. This will be doing subsequently to our later on bulletin, that is Matukio Mtambuko at 11, perhaps at 1 p.m. with the latest development, subsequently to a 4 p.m. bulletin, 7 and 9 p.m. From me here in Naivasha, Linda, I take it back to you to continue the discussions in the studio.
All right, thank you so much, really, Dennis, for the updates and equally for us to listen to the voice of the people, those ones that enjoy the sovereignty as dictated by the Constitution, the voice of the people, the voice of God. And remember, the lines are open still for you to speak to us, as well as the numbers that are on the screen running there. 22047 is the SMS shortcode. I'll be looking at some of the comments that you drop here. Latest is the Nation Media Group press vehicle stoned as police repulse rowdy youth in Kibera. And we also have over around 1,000 heavily armed GSU officers have barricaded processional way, leading to the official residence. The pictures are live at the processional way. That is official residence of the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, that is State House in Nairobi. And this is equally the situation across the different parts of the city. Mlango Kubwa, High, GSU on alert, and the presence also in Kibera. And of course, the latest that I have said, the Azimio politicians accusing the CA boss for, disabling the phone lines of their leaders. And we'll be following up to see on this. This also confirmed or perhaps said by the Iyala Member of Parliament, that is Winnie Odinga. They say despite everything, they will meet in the streets. And so perhaps also confirming that it will not just be the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and the Azimio team, but equally their children, as many have said, will be out in the streets on this very moment. We still do not have so much in relation to how the protests will shape up, but we'll be here to keep you up to tabs. Remember, we still have the three gentlemen who are helping us unpack on this very matter. There's a big danger on the social media, Peter Moshendo.
Yes.
If you go, on the social media and look at the level of which, hate is being spewed therein, there must be underlying issues that really affect the people of Kenya for them to be this.
I think it is high time, as much as most Kenyans may not want to hear this, the communication and the way we break news in this republic has moved from mainstream to social media. Before we get to discuss something here, there are already people who are already consuming it on social media. And therefore, it has become apparent that there are people who have decided they will use social media for hate mongering. Today, go through the social media right now. Even right now, look at the kind of things people are writing, whether in support or against support of the strike or whatever they are planning to do today. It does not give you, simply because you can type from the comfort of your bed or from the comfort of your house or from the comfort of your office, simply because you can type and communicate to the rest of the world. It does not give you liberty to, to give hate mongering an opportunity. Today, you will find, if you go to the thread that is live today at TV47, you will find people who are insulting either the host or the panelist or whoever, simply because you can afford a software phone and some bundles. It does not give you the right to become irresponsible as a Kenyan, and especially to the young people. You do not make a point by insulting Professor here or myself, or insulting another Kenyan who is pro-Azimio, or it does not make you a better person simply because you have insulted. I've seen this, and especially there's one thing I am against, which has been melted, especially on women, on body shaming on social media. It has become uncouth. It has become something that does not represent who we are as a nation.
If not regulated, if we don't regulate ourselves, do we regulate?
Can I tell you, Rinda? Maybe, I don't know, but most likely you get to receive emails or messages or writings from Communication Commission or the Media Association, Owner Association, or the Editors Guild. They keep reprimanding you if they feel your show is going against the set guidelines. I'm sure that happens to most TV stations, because they are guided on the kind of information you disseminate to the world. And therefore, because social media has taken over and it is now one of the biggest medium of communication in the world and in this republic, we have no alternative but to regulate it, because the moment I come here to analyze politics as Moshendo, I'm coming here in my own personal capacity. I do not come here to represent my family or my dad or my mom, but there's someone in social media on the other end waiting to insult me and invoking the name of my family or the name of my... And I'm not here to represent them. And therefore, whether we like it or not, freedom is good, but freedom with responsibility is better.
Well put.
So we have to, it is time this country regulated social media so that people can seriously pay for the kind of nonsense they are putting there. I mean, people are waking up and they decide, Professor here, they will come and say, RIP Professor. And then everybody who is in the circles of Professor is worried. The family is in shatters and everything. This is the kind of rhetoric that I am saying we must regulate social media, and we must make Kenyans, especially we young people, responsible for anything that we put out there for consumption.
A quick short break, and then we come back, wind up on this session, perhaps get your view on the appointments of the CAS. One, Peter Karhura is reminding us that, does employing 50 millionaires better the economy? Let's take a short break, then come back on that.
The Mwai Kibaki Convention Center, the premier events venue. Our state-of-the-art facilities are designed to meet all your needs, from large-scale conferences to intimate meetings and everything in between. Located in the heart of Thika, the Mwai Kibaki Convention Center offers stunning views of the city skyline and is easily accessible from all major transportation hubs. Our facility features ample parking, free Wi-Fi, advanced audiovisual equipment, and our technical team is always on hand to ensure your event runs smoothly and seamlessly. Don't take our word for it. Make your next event unforgettable at the Mwai Kibaki Convention Center. Contact us today for bookings and reservations. Email multimedia@mku.ac.ke or call us on 0708 212204 or 0727 441733 or 0721 438 629 to learn more about our services and book your event.
The past and look forward by concentrating on work. Elections were over. Let the ruling government do its work, and depending on their manifesto and lots of feedback. Right, Raila Odinga has been fighting for long. It is important that he takes a back seat and allow for others to take up the challenge. But then somebody else, Benina, asks who is going to take up the challenge. And here we are. We come back to this conversation in about 10-15 minutes max. You started us with this year's talk, from 20-something to 50-something, from a legal battle to it being officially declared as a seat that is necessary. And Rigathi Gachagua the other day was speaking to it and says, sometimes it's necessary to have these people, and looking at, the intrigues and the difficulties that sit in these ministries. And sometimes you really want someone to speak with authority on behalf of the CS who could be busy somewhere else. You suddenly need to have a PS. If not a PS, then you need to have CSs, justifying why their government has termed it necessary to maintain the seats and even extend the number.
And in being honest with you, we really don't need those seats, because you see, in the first Jubilee administration, correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't have them. The CS, they didn't have them. And this is the same administration that those in government now say worked.
But they probably saw the gap and thought it wise to have a CS position. And I am saying they have even adjusted the number upwards because there's that need.
You see, that one is political dishonesty, because they sought 23 vacancies, ended up with 50 appointments. And it's not about seeing that they saw there's something lacking. It is about political rewards. We have suffered together. Oh, you were with me in the trenches. Oh, let me give you a soft landing so that you have 5 years to prepare yourself and come for elections. It is very obvious. When you look at most of the people that have actually gotten the nominations, are political rejects. They failed in elections, and now because they have nowhere to go, they've given that's why I said it's a recycle bin. Right click, restore, give a new lease of life, and that is a travesty. Because because I've gone through the charters they signed with the women, the youth, and what have you. If really you cared about the youth, let me go back to his appointments. He has failed them, because now I remember they talked about 4 ministries for the youth in their charter. That has not been achieved, if you ask me. Because if you look at the CSS, because unless the term youth changed, the definition, that has not been achieved. If at all they talk about they need people who, this government talks about we want to mentor the next crop of leaders, then if you must really have those seats, then that is the position to do. Because if you want to mentor them on how government works, then use the CAS position. But you cannot tell me a 2-term governor wants to go and become a T-boy. From looking at for example, at a county where you failed miserably, most of them.
And then you label this position.
Most of them failed. Some of them were 1-term governors. The only thing they left us was grass. But now we are being told they'll advance our issues on trade. You look at, for example, because at the end of the day, I feel that we really don't need it. We are really overrepresented in this country. I have an MCA. I have an MP. I have a senator. I have a governor. I have a president, a deputy president. I have ministers, PSs. And now I have this. And this all goes back to you as a taxpayer, because the government doesn't have money. The money they use is your money. So at the end of the day, how are you helping me by putting a burden on me, on people who are rejects, most of them?
Have we not been asking the government to create employment? And are these not able Kenyans that are getting employment, Doctor?
This is what I think about this bloated CS appointments. And I'll be a little careful, because some of the people being referred to by my good friend are my very, very close people. It doesn't matter. That's the opinion is very welcome. Now, for instance, the former governor of Nairobi, close friend of mine, we come from the same Homa Bay, was appointed CAS. Now, in his statement, he said, really, I may not need the kind of job to feed my family and what have you, due to my age and what have you. My people are already old. But more importantly, I think I need to serve. I wanted to serve as governor. I could not make it as governor, and now I've been given the opportunity to serve. Those are his statements. Whether we appreciate them or not, it's another case. But this is my view. The government made a mistake from the initial appointment. And the CS issue is now to revert, to try to rectify that. Now, what was the mistake? You can't have a government with 90 or 80% from 2 tribes. And then you realize that, then the other people start complaining that ini serikali yawa, you know, that kind of talk. And then it's gaining momentum. The opposition is using it, or Azimio is using it as a weapon. And so many other people are using it as a weapon to say, Sisi, we are not in. So, for the sake of inclusivity, the current government had to do something. And that the avenue left were, they say there's this, and then the ambassadors, and then a few parastatals here and there. So, in my view, it may not be the right thing to do under the circumstances, but it was necessary to have that inclusivity. Otherwise, the Kisis were going to feel, for instance, from 51, there was not even a single PS, and the Kisis are very, you know, they fit that bill like everybody else. Yeah. So that has provided that. So I'm using that to, not to justify, but just to say that it is a mistake that was done initially. I think the initial appointment should have really looked at the face of Kenya. Even if the priority was more of loyalty. You know, if you are loyal to me, I'll get you. Whether 2 of you are from the same county, I'll still appoint you. I'll still appoint Kuria and water minister. You know, they are only 3 kilometers apart. You know, and then somebody else, Chungwa, appoint you. You know, then you realize that what about the Turkanas? What about somebody from Migori?
But how realistic are we? How realistic are we when we're talking about this balance of region and as well as, you know, incorporating some gender balance in government? Maybe gender we would work around with, but the regional balance, just how is it possible to achieve this?
You know, I don't want to get myself in a murky water on this particular issue, but nonetheless, I think inclusivity is a very important aspect in a country that is full of so many races in terms of tribe and where we come from. But I told you, on the PAS appointments, can we define what are regions in the Republic? What are the known regions in the Republic? We used to have the provinces that used to be known. They are no longer there. We now have counties that terms as the 47 county governments together with our national government. In the permanent secretary's appointment, only 2 counties did not get someone from their county. Now I keep telling people, at the risk of sounding like I am cynical or something, you have how many counties that consist Mount Kenya? You have how many counties that consist the Kalenjins and all those people? In terms of representation of every tribe, it's very important. But let's also not lie to ourselves that some of these most attacked tribes now represent the biggest number of those people who come from their area. That is one. Number 2, they also represent, people keep castigating Gachagua. The only mistake Gachagua made by talking about shareholding and company, the only mistake he only made was saying it in public, maybe. But it is a fact.
It's a conversation that
is there. Yeah. There is no way government will appoint those people who do not support or do not buy into the ideas they want to bring in government. Nonetheless, when it comes to the 50 CAS, at least I have no complaint. My friend Dennis Itumbi, who I told you seated here, will be appointed, has been appointed CAS. But I was hoping, because I'm a Kenyan, and I was hoping that the people who are in the age of Noldin and our age would have contributed in big numbers in those CASs, because these are the future CSs and permanent secretaries who would make the Republic. Anyway, I have no idea the rationale that was used that got people like Kindero into being appointed as CAS. And I have seen my friend who gets benefit of 3 consecutive government without vying for a seat. My friend Senator Mwaura is now that time to benefit from government without a political seat. Nonetheless, what I am saying is we went through a rigorous process, a court process that provided the government with the opportunity to appoint CASs. Unfortunately, where I part with Noldin is that when the ruling was being done, it was not done for the 23. And this is the mistake. Again, I would say probably comes with the rulings from the judiciary that it did not remit the government to what extent can you go with this. They only addressed the issue of whether we need a CS or we don't. And you see, as a government, and I told you, if you remember very well, Rinda, one of the people who will have a very serious political baggage like never before in the politics of this country is William Ruto. He has a very huge political baggage, and the balancing act is not acting on his advantage. And therefore, that is why you will find he has appointed 50 CASs, and he will attract the wrath of the opposition and those who think that maybe there are too many. There are those who would think that there are people who are not supposed to be there. In his wisdom as the president, he has seen it right to do that. And therefore, ikifika to whether that list was supposed to be 50 or those appointed were supposed to be the one appointed, mimi sina maoni hata kidogo.
Yes.
Let me just say
close,
something. You know, this issue of inclusivity, we view it in a very weird manner. In that, the reason why we always cry for inclusivity, and the reason why my brother said he would wish people like me to be nominated, the reason why I can't be nominated is because I cannot list my brain. And I say how things are meant to be.
Right.
So the problem with Kenya is one. This issue of inclusivity is because our politics is tribal. And whether the president agrees or not, they are tribal as well in how they are planning their government. And that is why the rush or certain need to throw 2 or 1 from one community or 2 or 3, then come and say every community is represented. For you to actually come and talk about representation of each community shows the problem in you and your government. You see, when you're being sworn in as the President of the Republic of Kenya, it's not Kiambu, and I keep saying this every day in your show, it's not Kiambu, Machakos, Nairobi, it's the Republic of Kenya. So when you remove the lens of how I am from Western, I am from Kenya, that is how we change. Because one, in your appointments, in as much as you suffered in quotes with some in your trenches that only you know, you will look for competence, you look for merit, and most of these individuals have questionable character. So we are talking about the president is on record saying this government will be a government of rule of law. Does he know that the appointment he made for Evans Kidero, there is a case in court? So what happens? Does my namesake wake up one day and withdraw like withdrew other cases? So is that the Kenya we want? We will never move forward because we will be making the same mistakes and we keep saying expect different results. And that is why some of us cannot be given, and I'm not even looking for them, you know. So at the end of the day, we need to wake up to the realization that if we want a better Kenya, it starts from you. So if we are tribal, you're the father of the nation, you're the father of tribalism. So you change that, then gradually we change it all together. Because when you also go on campaign and say, ile mutu ya mawe, ile mutu ya reli, what are you saying in short?
Wow, interesting. Demonstrators arrested along City Hall Way and Wabera Street in Nairobi CBD, and in Kibra they've been stopped from accessing the CBD or marching to the CBD for the protests. I don't know whether that's a good thing or not. We all perhaps expected for it to play out within the city, but clearly no access to the city. It will be interesting to watch what happens, and we will be here to make sure that you get all these updates as and when they get to hit the desk. It is the event that is taking center stage in the country. the much anticipated 20th March protest, that is March 2023, led by Azimio leader Raila Odinga and the other Azimio leaders. I don't know where they would be. Some out of the country. Whether they'll join in is a question of wait and see, as they would say. The day is still young. Nordin Kagai, last speaker, who was Wakili. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Peter Moshendu, governance expert, as well as Dr. Ken Kamboya, who's an international development consultant with IGAD. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Unless there's something else you want us to say, I think we've said it all. We can only wait.
I just wanted to say that choices have consequences. Yes. One American diplomat once said. Yeah. And so if the government is making choices, let it make choices that the consequences are in the benefit of the mwananchi. Yeah. Equally, on the other side, whatever choices they make, I think it's very important that that is taken into account.
Well put, Daktari. Yeah. Thank you so much. Stanley Nyaringita on standby again for more updates. Let's cross over there. Stanley, if you can hear me.
Right, good morning, Linda. Coming to you live from Ngong Road, basically. And we are at Baruk Road, where we are right now with other, media houses. We were previously in Olympic in Kibra, where around 45 minutes ago, there was some fracas, running battles between the police and the protesters who, were making their way and marching all the way to State House, basically. And right here, where we are right now, on top of this particular vehicle, we're being told that the protesters actually left Olympic in Kibra, where they actually burned some tires, and then now they're actually heading all the way to State House, actually marching to Nairobi. Some particular injuries, a few injuries from the police. They were actually pelting stones on the police, and we are trying to actually see how the situation is. 45 minutes ago, Linda, the situation in Kibra, basically in Olympic, it was chaos. The police were literally at the center, and the media were at the center of this particular fracas. The protesters were actually, pelting stones to the police, basically from the left to from the right, and from the north and south. So the police and the media were, the casualty, basically. So right here is in the junction of Baruk Road, and basically on the north is Ngong Road. And a few minutes ago, some protesters were actually, marching to Nairobi, where they are going to, meet Azimio leader Raila Odinga and other leaders from the Central Business District, and then they can march all the way to State House. And majorly, some roads that will actually be affected during this particular march is State House and the Kenyatta Avenue, because a few minutes ago, even the security, we were in the Odeon, and the security was beefed up in major cities, in major parts of Nairobi County, in major parts of the Central Business District. The security is quite beefed up. The vehicles are there, and the security are there, and they're armored, basically. So we will be heading to Nairobi and seeing how the situation is, Linda.
For 5 minutes.
All right, thank you, Stanley Nyaringita, for that. We'll be getting more updates from the different parts of the country. I think just observing how the day will unfold. Exactly 23 minutes past the top of the hour. There's so much that is likely to shift, but we can only wait, and we'll be here to make sure that you are up to tabs. Stanley, thank you so much for the updates there. We are about 7 minutes for us to close, but I will leave you with pictures of what is taking center stage across the different parts of the country, but as well also listening to some of the stories that we've compiled, and equally the interview by the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. All this happening right here on the home of Untold Stories. Make sure that you keep it here as well. You'll be getting the updates of the same on our radio channel.